In the past, Ares often spent his nights listening to a streamer known as Apollo. Her voice was his only solace at that time. Back then, her streams were small and intimate, sometimes consisting of only the two of them talking. Every night, she would end her stream by telling her listeners that she loved them, a simple phrase that stayed deeply etched in Ares' heart. As the new school year begins, a nervous teacher struggles through an important announcement that Furin Girls Academy has merged with Furin Boys, turning the school into a co-ed institution. Before the teacher can fully explain, Ares abruptly interrupts, clearly dissatisfied with the fumbling introduction. He confidently introduces himself to the class, boldly declaring that he will one day lead Japan and therefore cannot tolerate imperfection. He ends his introduction with a respectful bow, but quickly shocks everyone by admitting that he is only 99% perfect. To become complete, he claims he needs all the girls in the class to tell him that they love him. During the break, the boys swarm Ares, angrily accusing him of ruining their reputation and making the girls wary of them. Ares sees no problem with his actions, insisting that they should be grateful. A blonde girl soon approaches him, openly flirting after assuming he comes from a wealthy family. Ares steps toward her, causing her to retreat in surprise at his boldness. After listening carefully to her voice, he bluntly tells her that it lacks impact. Noticing the time, Ares abruptly announces that he needs to use the bathroom, explaining that he relieves himself at the same time every day. As he leaves, the girls whisper about how strange he is, while the boys explain that Ares is searching for a girl whom he only recognizes by voice. Ares overhears them in the hallway, carefully listening to the girls' voices, but none of them match the one he is seeking. As he walks on, he receives a message from his mother. Once notifications like these filled him with excitement, as they usually meant Apollo's stream had started. To Ares' shock, he suddenly hears Rika softly whisper, "I love you," right behind him, teasingly reminding him that break time is almost over. She also points out that he still hasn't gone to the toilet. Flustered, Ares hurriedly rushes off to take care of his business. During lunch, Ares remains distracted, constantly replaying Rika's voice in his head. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted when a female voice echoes through the school intercom. The boys around him are immediately thrilled that the announcements are being handled by a girl. Ares, however, feels something else entirely. Without warning, he declares that he suddenly has something important to do and rushes out. He sprints through the hallways toward where he believes the broadcast room is, his heart racing at the possibility that the voice belongs to Apollo. Based on their past conversations, he knows she should be around the same age as him and lives in the same prefecture. He also remembers her dream of attending an all-girls high school with a view of the ocean. To increase his chances of meeting her, Ares had deliberately enrolled in Furin Boys, knowing that the school would eventually become co-ed by the time they reached high school. When he finally reaches the broadcast room, Ares swings the door open. Inside, he finds 4 girls staring at him in confusion. They quickly scold him for interrupting their broadcast, and Rika immediately tells Nene to mute the mic. As the girls continue reprimanding him, Ares listens closely and notices that each of them sounds like Apollo in a different way. Rika shares a similar tone, Shinobu has the same intonation and pronunciation, Iko's manner of speaking reminds him of Apollo's whispery streams, and Nene carries the same angry voice. Ares feels a deep sense of disappointment. He had believed he could recognize Apollo instantly by her voice alone, yet now he can't determine which of them she might be. The girls then ask if he plans on going pro someday. Confused, Ares listens as they explain that they joined the broadcasting club to pursue careers using their voices. Shinobu shares her dream of becoming an anchor, prompting the others to talk about their own ambitions. Their words stir another memory where Apollo once spoke of a similar dream. Ares' thoughts are cut short when Shinobu casually admits that she already knows about him, thanks to his outrageous self-introduction. But Nene kicks him and angrily calls him a creep for making such an outrageous request. Ares explains himself, insisting that he is searching for someone important. Iko asks if that person might be her as she shows him her VTuber model and admits that her shyness is part of her persona. Rika quickly jumps in to tease Ares, suggesting that he actually came all this way just to see her. To everyone's surprise, Ares calmly admits that he did, and then bluntly asks all 4 girls if any of them is Apollo. The girls stare at him in confusion, with some even wondering aloud if he's talking about the chocolate brand. Ares looks at them in disbelief. He's convinced they're lying. He reasons that Apollo may not want to reveal herself and that her disappearance from streaming is likely connected to that decision. Deciding not to push further for now, Ares turns to leave, convincing himself that he'll have plenty of chances to investigate them another day. However, the girls tell him not to come back since only club members are allowed inside the broadcast room. Ares turns back and boldly declares that he is a professional when it comes to voice work, giving him every right to join the broadcasting club. He then points out that a major flaw in their operation is their outdated equipment. Iko is the first to agree with him, admitting that the school equipment is old, but there's little they can do about it. Aries then proposes that he'll provide them with brand new equipment if they allow him to join the club. The room falls silent until Shinobu finally admits that it sounds like a good deal. Rika also agrees, casually adding that she finds Aries' voice pleasant. The compliment catches him off guard. Thanking them, Aries confidently promises to lead the club to greatness as their president, only for Nene to angrily snap back that Rika is already their president. The girls then wonder how they can repay him for the equipment. Rika smiles and says she has the perfect idea. She tells Aries to face the other direction. When he does, she and the other girls suddenly surround him with voices, all announcing that they love him. Overwhelmed and deeply embarrassed, Aries hastily declares that he needs to finish his lunch and promptly rushes out of the room. Outside, Aries is certain that one of the girls is Apollo. His thoughts drift back to her final stream. He had been the only listener when she ended the broadcast. She told everyone she loved them. Summoning his courage, Aries had responded, telling her that he loved her too. The memory makes him cringe, and he scolds himself for confessing to a girl he barely knew. Part of his urgency to find Apollo is due to that confession, since he needs it deleted. Aries is confident that he will become someone important in the future, and he cannot risk something so embarrassing being used against him. By the end of the day, the club members celebrate Aries' acceptance. They force him into odd party clothes, and although he is clearly being teased, Aries does his best to appear thankful. He almost snaps when Nene refers to him as their errand boy, but Shinobu explains that it was the only way their advisor would approve his membership. Swallowing his pride, he agrees to go along with it and promises to do his best as the club's errand boy. The following day, Aries reviews his notes and decides that he will carefully observe each of the girls. When he enters the club room, only Shinobu is there, adjusting her script for the after-school broadcast. She explains that she tends to flub her lines, so she marks difficult words. She gestures for him to stay quiet as the broadcast begins. Aries watches closely, recalling that Shinobu wants to become a news anchor. She is also the student council vice president and a model honor student. As Shinobu delivers the announcements, Aries is impressed by how clear her voice is. However, the moment she reaches the words she marked in her script, she immediately mispronounces them. It happens every time, so noticeably that Aries can't ignore it. Without thinking, he scolds her, forgetting the microphone is still on. Back in the classroom, Aries' male classmates warn him not to correct Shinobu. They insist that her habit of messing up her lines is part of her charm. Deciding it's pointless to argue, Aries leaves them behind as they continue gushing over her. Mentally, he lowers Shinobu on his list of possible Apollo candidates. Soon after, Aries overhears Nene animatedly talking about Lilikos, a comic he clearly remembers Apollo mentioning. Nene is well known for her bright, energetic personality and is also popular as an avid cosplayer. When a classmate hands her a comic and asks her to voice Lily's lines, Nene happily agrees. As she begins reading aloud, her performance is shockingly accurate, and even Aries finds himself impressed. However, she suddenly stumbles over a word. Unfortunately, she goes on to misread several more lines, unintentionally changing the story. Hearing this, Aries feels disappointed. When Nene finally notices him watching, she loudly calls him out for staring. Aries attempts to explain himself, but the people around her already view him unfavorably, so he quietly removes himself from the situation. Sitting alone on a set of steps, Aries reflects on why identifying Apollo has been so difficult. He wonders if listening to her through streams has distorted his perception of her real voice. While he's convinced that Apollo must be one of the girls in the broadcasting club, he realizes that voice alone isn't enough. He needs to match what he knows about Apollo's personality with each of them. His thoughts are interrupted when Iko suddenly speaks right beside him, startling him so that he falls forward. She quickly apologizes, explaining that she can't see well with her colored contacts. Aries recalls that Iko is an aspiring VTuber. Iko explains that she uses this spot to do short streams during break. She sets up her tablet, and Aries leans closer to observe. Iko energetically greets her viewers, reads a few live comments, and then quickly ends the stream. Aries is surprised by how short it was, but she explains that break time streams are meant to be brief. Despite this, Aries feels another wave of disappointment and excuses himself. Wandering aimlessly through the school, his frustration grows. To him, it feels like all the club members are far too relaxed. His thoughts return to Apollo, how seriously she spoke about wanting to use her voice professionally. He remembers promising Apollo that he would learn everything he could about voice work so he could support her. The two of them had sworn to work toward the professional world together. Now, Aries wonders if he's the only one who ever meant that promise. Soon, Shinobu's voice echoes through the school for announcements. Elsewhere, Iko spots Rika doing nothing and scolds her for slacking off. Rika apologizes, then wonders aloud what Aries really thinks of them. Suddenly, Aries' voice cuts through the intercom. Alarmed, the girls rush toward the broadcast room. When they arrive, they find Aries openly calling out the broadcasting club for being lax and telling the students that they shouldn't be treated like princesses. If Apollo is among them, she needs to remember their promise. Since he doesn't know which girl she is, he decides that he'll make sure all of their dreams come true. He declares over the broadcast that he will work tirelessly to guide the broadcasting club toward becoming true professionals. The moment he finishes, he's promptly kicked out of the room so the girls can take over the broadcast. His phone notifies him that Apollo is live. Aries immediately tunes in. Apollo greets him warmly, admitting that she's happy he's listening and that she was always grateful to him, even back when she barely had any viewers. She apologizes, saying she still can't reveal herself yet. Then she confesses that whenever she told her listeners that she loved them, she was always talking about him. Aries listens in silence, staring at the broadcast room door. As the girls continue their broadcast, Aries checks his phone. Apollo's message confirms his suspicion that she is part of the broadcasting club. He considers going back into the room, but ultimately decides against it. Instead, he leaves, determined to find her and fulfill their promise. The next morning, Aries gathers the girls at the beach for an early jog, explaining that running is excellent vocal training. Shinobu notices a seagull flying past with an earbud caught in its beak. Aries recognizes it as his own and suddenly sprints off in reverse to catch it, astonishing the girls of how fast he moves even while running backward. After the jog, the girls are left shocked by the fact that Aries isn't even out of breath. Nene scolds him for acting like their personal coach. Calmly, Aries removes his sunglasses and tells her that he is the perfect person to turn them into professionals. Nene is ready to argue again, but Shinobu cuts in, admitting that they really have been slacking off. Shinobu adds that they had already talked about exercising together, so this training works out well for everyone. Rika then steps forward and directly asks Aries if they can trust him with their future. Aries looks at her carefully before answering that he's serious about wanting all of them to succeed. Nene challenges him to prove it. Aries agrees, but first suggests they stop for breakfast. At that, the girls suddenly grow uneasy and try to head back toward the club room. When Aries asks why they're running away, Nene snaps that they're sweaty and need to change first. After changing, they meet at a diner. There, Aries hands each of them a notebook filled with notes outlining their weaknesses and specific ways to improve. He explains that he personally tailored each one, so their training plans differ depending on their needs. The girls are impressed by the level of detail, though Nene is bewildered by the massive stack of reading exercises assigned to her. The girls continue going through Aries' notes and notice that each of them has concrete goals meant to push them one step closer to their dream. Rika is surprised that she needs to sell at least 50 CDs during a live performance. Aries proudly explains that all of these goals are designed to build confidence. A brief silence follows until Rika asks Aries if he has ever played an instrument himself. He admits that he hasn't, so Rika points out that it takes a lot of courage to sing and perform in front of an audience. Aries insists that she should follow his plan anyway, arguing that live performance is something she must face. Rika then asks if Aries has ever been nervous before. Without hesitation, he replies that nervousness isn't part of his family. Rika stands up, cups his face, and calmly calls him a liar. To her, he's all talk, and she sees no reason to listen to his advice. With that, she quietly leaves the diner. Aries is left confused, prompting Nene to explain that he managed to make Rika angry. She adds that Rika is talented enough to write her own music, so being lectured by someone who lacks first-hand experience feels insulting. As the girls talk, they suddenly realize Aries is missing. In reality, he's crouched under the table, shaken by what Rika had said. After a moment, he starts laughing and pulls himself back up, declaring that the only way forward is to hear Rika perform. The following Wednesday after classes, Aries heads to the school courtyard. He's heard rumors that Rika holds weekly mini concerts there, drawing large crowds of female fans. As soon as the fans notice Aries, they immediately tell him to back off. He tries to explain that he's Rika's clubmate, but the crowd won't listen. Before things can escalate further, she looks out at the crowd and admits that she's nervous. Aries freezes in shock, since it's the exact same line Apollo used to say before she sang. As she begins playing an original song, Aries stares at her as she captivates both the crowd and him. In that moment, he's pulled back to the past, remembering the times Apollo would sing during her streams. Memories come flooding back. Those evenings spent listening to Apollo were some of the best moments of his life. As Rika continues to play, the idea that she might truly be Apollo suddenly feels very real. When Rika finishes her first song, Aries realizes that her similarity to Apollo is far stronger than that of the other girls. Eventually, Rika announces that she'll accept one final song request. As the girls excitedly shout out suggestions, she glances at her backpack filled with her original compositions, then briefly looks toward Aries. She can't help thinking how much she doesn't want Aries to hear her songs. After the concert ends, she bids her fans goodbye and walks over to him. With a teasing smile, she asks if his heart belongs to her now after hearing her perform. Aries immediately agrees and apologizes for doubting her. He tells her that her live performances are guaranteed to succeed. Rika's expression hardens, and she tells him that she doesn't have to listen to him, then walks off. Several days pass, and Rika starts to feel uneasy when she realizes she hasn't seen Aries around. She hears a commotion coming from the courtyard and rushes over. There, she sees Aries surrounded by girls trying to defend himself as they complain. When he notices her, he greets her and explains that he's performing. He tells her that he's been practicing to prove her wrong. Rika is left speechless by his explanation, but her attention is drawn to his hand, which is wrapped in bandages. Rika can't help but admire Aries' determination. She apologizes to the girls for forgetting to inform them that today's performance will be a duet with Aries. She then steps onto the stage beside him, leaving Aries visibly confused. Rika reassures him that he can play whatever he wants and that she'll support him. After the performance, Rika teasingly comments on how rough their concert was and asks if he finally felt nervous. Despite everything, Aries stubbornly refuses to admit it. Amused, Rika suddenly presses her ear to his chest. The move completely catches Aries off guard. Trapping him in place, she smirks when she hears his heart racing. On another day after classes, Nene leaves the club room ahead of everyone. Iko suggests that she's probably up to something shady. Aries reminds her about her goal of passing the language exam. Furious, Nene curses at him and slams the clubroom door. Aries suspects that Nene might be getting herself into trouble, but Shinobu calmly reassures him that she isn't doing anything wrong. Still unconvinced, Aries decides to follow Nene. He sees her enter an empty classroom and quietly approaches the door. He watches Nene reading the comic out loud. Her voice is surprisingly soft and sweet, but something about her delivery feels off. Unable to hold back, Aries slides the door open and bluntly tells her that her acting is terrible. He sees the cover and realizes it's a romance manga he's never heard of. Nene is shocked by his ignorance, loudly declaring that Knightly Love is the hottest comic around. She immediately launches into an enthusiastic explanation of the story, which is a forbidden romance between a knight and a princess. She describes her favorite scene where the princess hides her feelings by pretending to brush dirt from the knight's armor, secretly planting a kiss on his helmet when no one is watching. So absorbed in her explanation, Nene doesn't notice how close Aries has moved. At that moment, Aries notices an announcement printed on the comic's cover stating that auditions are being held for the anime adaptation. With her secret exposed, Nene insists that she needs to practice alone. Aries refuses, saying that her success is now part of his responsibility, so he has every reason to stay. When Nene still won't accept his help, Aries starts revealing his own embarrassing moments one after another, blushing as he speaks. He tells her that if she's going to be embarrassed, then he'll be embarrassed alongside her. Seeing how serious he is, she finally sits down and explains that she plans to audition. The problem is that she's never been in a relationship, so she has no idea how to act it out. When she accuses Aries of not taking her seriously, he calmly says that what she needs is experience. Without warning, Aries kneels on one knee, takes her hand, and asks her to be his girlfriend. Nene freezes, then immediately explodes in disbelief. Aries explains that he was simply acting out a line from the comic. He tells her to accept his confession so she can get used to acting like she's in a relationship before the auditions begin. Nene stubbornly refuses, but Aries presses on. He accuses her of not taking her dreams seriously if she isn't willing to act for just 3 weeks to prepare for the role. From the look on her face, Aries knows he's struck a nerve. The next day, the two of them arrive at school holding hands, instantly shocking the entire student body. Nene is visibly nervous, while Aries seems to be enjoying himself, even reciting lines straight from the comic. At one point, he pulls her closer and casually offers to carry her on his back. Nene's face burns red as she realizes that the final chapter of the comic includes a kiss between the two leads. She starts to wonder if Aries intends to act out the entire story. News of their relationship quickly reaches the broadcasting club. While they accept it on the surface, something feels off. As time passes, the club notices that Aries and Nene argue far more than they act affectionately. By the 19th day, it's clear they bicker constantly and don't resemble lovers at all. Shinobu believes this means the two have grown closer and more comfortable with each other. On the 20th day, Aries and Nene find themselves alone in the same empty classroom. The deadline is close and there's only the kissing scene left. At first, Nene worries about her chapped lips. Then her thoughts spiral and she starts to suspect that Aries went through all of this just to kiss her. She's on the verge of yelling at him until she notices Aries quietly studying the comic. In that moment, she realizes he truly wants to help her. Reluctantly, she admits to herself that he's actually a better actor than she is and that working with him has helped her improve. Bracing herself, Nene prepares her lips, fully expecting Aries to initiate the kiss. Instead, he calmly tells her to rest well for the audition. Caught off guard, she asks if they are going to practice the kiss scene. Aris answers that they won't and explains that she should only kiss someone she truly loves. Nene doesn't expect such thoughtfulness from him, and though it leaves her flustered, she chooses to hide it behind anger. She calls him an idiot and storms toward the door. Before she leaves, Aris softly wishes her good luck. Hesitating for just a moment, Nene admits that she had a little fun during the past 3 weeks. The following day, Nene announces that she didn't pass the audition. The news hits Aris so hard that he faints on the spot, overwhelmed after all the preparation they went through. Nene quickly adds that it isn't his fault. Aris apologizes for not being able to predict the outcome. The comic is held over his face to hide his regret. Watching him like that, Nene suddenly recalls her favorite scene. Deciding it's the perfect chance, she leans in and gently kisses the book covering his face. As she turns to leave, Aris grabs her hand and asks if she kissed him. Then, without hesitation, he bluntly asks if she's fallen for him. Enraged, Nene flips him over her shoulder and loudly declares that she hates him before storming out of the classroom. The outburst startles the broadcasting club members waiting outside. They rush in to find Aris on one knee. Shinobu calmly reassures him that Nene was clearly lying just now. The others smile knowingly, since Nene's ears had turned bright red when she left. While the girls are changing in the club room, they forget to lock the door. Aris opens it and sees them changing. He quickly scolds them for changing without locking the door, warning that if anyone else had entered, their reputations could have been ruined. Just as quickly, he apologizes for seeing something he shouldn't have. Everyone settles down and they proceed with the after-school announcements, with Rika taking over this time after Shinobu flubbed her lines earlier. Afterward, the girls decide they want something sweet and invite Aris to come with them, but he declines, saying he has something else to do. Once he leaves, Nene suggests they follow him to get even. Rika hesitates, admitting she doesn't really feel embarrassed about what happened, but Nene points out that it's because Rika was mostly hidden behind her. In the end, the girls agree out of curiosity about Aris's private life. Nene even gives their plan a dramatic name. They follow Aris out of school and onto a train. Nene tries to snap photos from another car, hoping to catch him doing something suspicious, but he's only reading a textbook. Eventually, they get off and see Aris enter a cafe. While Nene remains focused on uncovering something shady, the other girls are more interested in what they might order. When they enter the cafe, they quickly duck into a distant seat so Aris won't notice them. As Aris becomes busy with his work, the girls wonder why Aris needs a part-time job. They overhear Aris speaking with the manager and learn that he's been taking on extra shifts to earn more money to upgrade the broadcasting club's equipment. The manager expresses some concern, asking if he's sure he wants to spend so much on a club. Aris answers that he wants to invest in the 4 members. He explains that while they're still far from being professionals, each of them has a great voice. The girls listen closely as the cafe manager casually asks Aris if he's in love with them. Aris denies it, saying he only cares about them as fellow club members. Before the conversation can go any further, the girls suddenly announce that they're ready to order. Aris turns toward the voices while Nene steps closer. As Aris struggles to understand why they're there, Nene eagerly starts taking photos of him. Back at the table, the other girls decide that this is embarrassing enough to count as payback. The following day, Aris is already in the broadcast room. He worries that Apollo might use the photos as blackmail. He's startled when Iko suddenly enters the room far earlier than expected. Aris panics, wondering if Iko is here to threaten him. To his surprise, Iko explains that she just wants to show him something embarrassing of her own. She locks the door and slowly unzips her jacket, only to pull out her tablet. Aris sits down as Iko shows him her VTuber model. She asks if he can help her improve her streams. As they check her channel statistics, Aris notices that her recent streams haven't been getting many views. They scroll through the comments, most of which suggest that her content is getting boring. Aris bluntly tells her that they probably are, pointing out that her streams are usually very short and often consist of nothing more than greeting viewers. Iko immediately gets defensive, insisting that those are just her break-time streams. She explains that her regular content includes a variety and proudly adds that she designed her own VTuber model. Aris looks at her, unimpressed, and calmly tells her that he already knows since he watched all her streams. This makes Iko self-conscious as she calls him a stalker. Aris loudly protests, pointing out that she can't accuse him of that when everything she posts is publicly available. He then pulls up clips of her avatar and bluntly tells her that the real problem is that her model barely shows any emotion. Iko complains that he's being too loud, but Aris fires back, saying that her avatar feels lifeless. He explains that with current technology, even a 2D model can be animated with different expressions. Iko looks down and admits that she isn't good with that kind of technical work, and that commissioning someone to upgrade her VTuber model would be expensive. Aris starts to remind her that she already has someone reliable by her side, but Iko immediately reminds him that he is their errand boy. After recovering from the insult, Aris firmly tells her to leave all the technical work to him. Before she can thank him, he adds that Iko still has her own job to do as she needs to separate her avatar into different layers for him. The two of them dive straight into work. They spend days coordinating, tweaking settings, and even holding strategy meetings to prepare for the debut of her upgraded model. One afternoon, as Iko waits alone in the broadcast room, Aris suddenly slams the door open and announces that it's finally time to debut her new model. He proudly shows her the updated version of Ikon, but Iko is unable to see any difference. Aris explains that while the model looks the same, it can now copy her facial expressions using face tracking. He asks her to test it by laughing. Iko does, but her expression is subtle, and the avatar's laugh looks half-hearted. Aris tells her to exaggerate her emotions more, but Iko insists that she already is. Seeing her resistance, Aris explains that her fans are searching for a stronger emotional connection, and that means Ikon needs to show a wider range of expressions. Iko argues that she always smiles when she streams, but Aris bluntly tells her that her smile feels fake. Iko pulls her hood over her head and admits that she's just not good at showing her emotions. In response, Aris calmly locks the door, then suddenly starts tickling her, telling her to let her emotions out because no one wants to watch a streamer with a poker face. Iko finally manages to break free and whirls around, ready to scold Aris, only to freeze when she sees him wearing a pair of novelty glasses. She immediately turns away, covering her face as a small chuckle threatens to spill. Aris tries to coax her into facing him again, but in the process, they lose their balance and tumble to the floor. Aris ends up pinning her down and tells her that the smile she's making right now is exactly the expression her viewers want to see. Before he can say anything else, he hears Nene's voice coming from outside the window. When he looks over, he realizes it's a phone on a video call, awkwardly held up on a selfie stick. The girls had tried to enter the room, but found it locked. Seeing Aris and Iko on the floor together, Nene immediately panics and rushes back to start banging on the door. Aris instantly understands that explaining this situation will be a nightmare. Iko tries to explain what happened, but her explanation makes it sound like Aris was doing something seriously inappropriate. Without giving him a chance to defend himself, the girls decide to tie him up. Nene starts driving him toward the police station, but before they leave, Iko gives Aris a small, sincere smile, thanking him for all the work he's done for her. Aris returns the smile with a smirk and tells her that the true charm of a VTuber lies in being able to show who you really are behind the avatar. Iko's smile widens and she promises that she'll give her viewers a genuine smile in tomorrow's stream. Aris wishes her luck, and the other girls can't help but smile at the scene since it's strangely impressive how Aris still manages to look cool, even while tied up. The next day, excitement builds among viewers as word spreads about Ikon's new model. When the streaming finally starts, Ikon delivers her usual introduction, but fans in the chat seem confused, struggling to see any difference from her old model. Inside the broadcast room, Aris quietly scolds her, noting that she's even stiffer than usual. Iko nervously turns to him and admits that she's struggling. Still, since she's already live, she continues the stream, explaining to her viewers how much effort she put into creating and upgrading her avatar. As Aris watches her, he realizes the issue isn't that Iko can't express herself, it's that she can't do it in front of other people. As Iko's view count continues to drop, her expression grows more discouraged. Aris watches helplessly as she begs her remaining viewers to stay, explaining that she just needs a moment to adjust her model's settings. Seeing her like this, Aris starts to wonder if something traumatic might have happened in her past. Just as Iko begins saying goodbye to her viewers, Aris steps in front of her. When she looks up, she sees him holding a large white sketch pad with the word "smile" written on it. Iko panics. She's been trying to do exactly that, but the moment she looks at the screen, her face completely freezes. She squeezes her eyes shut, then opens them again when Aris taps the pad. This time, there's a new message asking if Iko wants him to help. Careful not to let her viewers hear, Iko mouths the words, "Help me." Aris smirks and suddenly moves behind her, then pauses the stream. Iko panics and immediately scolds him for stopping the broadcast. Aris calmly points out that her viewers were already leaving anyway. He tells her to look at herself first. When Iko does, she realizes she's sweating badly from nerves. Aris suggests she take off a few layers so she can relax. After tossing an insult his way, she reluctantly follows his advice. Aris sits down and teases her about the big promise she made. Iko pouts and admits she did realize she'd get this nervous. Still, Aris bluntly counters that if she were truly serious, she should have at least been able to smile. He goes even further, calling her tubing career something she's just half-heartedly fooling around with. That's when Iko finally snaps. She shouts that he's a jerk and insists that she is serious about becoming a great VTuber someday. She argues that she does have emotions, she's just terrified of showing them. Aris coldly asks if she hates streaming and suggests that maybe she should just quit altogether. That question breaks her. Tears well up as she cries that she loves streaming and doesn't want to quit. Aris then asks what she loves about streaming. Without thinking, Iko answers with a shy smile. She says she loves interacting with her viewers. Before she can say anything more, Shinobu suddenly bursts into the room. She blurts out that the stream's audio was never muted, so everyone heard her. Hearing the earlier stream, Nene immediately realizes that Aris was behind everything. Convinced that she's about to be cancelled, Iko panics. When Iko looks, she's stunned as the chat is overflowing with comments and her viewer count has shot up to over 2,000 people. Shinobu gently tells her that she at least owes her viewers an explanation. Iko hesitates, overwhelmed by the sudden attention and nervous about speaking to so many people. That's when Aris reminds her of what he said the day before, then slightly corrects himself. He explains that sometimes a VTuber's appeal becomes even stronger when they accidentally reveal their true self. He encourages Iko to end the stream on a positive note. Taking a deep breath, Iko uses her model. She jokingly pretends to fire a forget-it beam at them. The sudden expression catches everyone by surprise. As she ends the stream with a shy, nervous smile, her fans begin getting excited over her new expressions. Later, while in the boys' restroom, Aris notices an invitation to Ikon's private stream. He tunes in and casually announces that he's watching from the toilet. Iko brushes off the comment but admits she wanted to thank him using her new model. Aris pretends to be clueless, but Iko tells him that she knows he angered her on purpose. Ikon's avatar mirrors her gentle smile as she promises to keep doing her best. Aris smiles back and tells her that while Ikon's smile is cute, it doesn't compare to Iko's real one. The compliment makes Ikon's avatar suddenly revert to a poker face. Behind the screen, Iko hurriedly covers her face to block the tracking. She struggles to calm herself down as heat rushes up her face. Shinobu spearheads a meeting for the school's very first sports festival since becoming co-ed. During the meeting, one of the male council members points out that the documents she handed out are littered with her selfies. Shinobu panics when she realizes she messed up. She lets out an embarrassed laugh and hurriedly asks everyone to keep the mistake a secret. The male council members simply stare at her with dreamy expressions, finding her flustered reaction oddly adorable. Throughout the day, Shinobu is constantly approached by students, each one needing her help with something. Despite already having too much on her plate, she continues to smile and accepts every request that comes her way. By sunset, she finally makes her way to the broadcast room, exhaustion clearly settling into her body. She knows she'll likely be busy until late in the evening. The broadcast club holds a meeting to discuss their responsibilities for the upcoming sports festival. When it comes time to assign tasks, Shinobu ends up volunteering for most of the work herself, since most of the members seem unwilling to take up some tasks. However, once they check out all their roles, they quickly realize just how much she's taken on and voice their concerns. Shinobu, however, insists that she can handle it all and claims that it's better this way. Aris then suggests that the club should host an event of their own during the festival. Some members immediately share ideas, while others admit they're not sure what they want to do yet. Shinobu volunteers to write everything down and handle the proposal as well. After the meeting, Rika reminds everyone to think about what kind of event they want to run. The group eventually agrees that karaoke would be fun to end the day, but Shinobu turns down the invitation, saying she'll be busy later. Rika offers to help her with her workload, but Shinobu gently refuses. In the end, the rest of the members decide to head home instead of going out, choosing not to go without her. Suddenly, Aris locks eyes with Shinobu, startling her. Without saying a word, he turns and darts away, only to return moments later with his bag. He tells Shinobu to follow him. He leads her to an empty staircase and corners her there. Lowering his voice, Aris asks her to promise to keep what he's about to do a secret. Shinobu grows nervous, half expecting that he might kiss her, but instead, Aris offers her a lozenge, pointing out that her voice doesn't sound the same. When she accepts it, he reminds her to keep it a secret. Lozenges count as candy, and he can't be caught bringing sweets to school since it's against the rules. Shinobu feels flattered that Aris noticed the change in her voice. However, the strange pressure settles and when he casually mentions that he's always watching and listening to her. Flustered, Shinobu slowly promises to keep herself behaving properly in front of him, which causes him to get suspicious. Aris's expression turns serious as he bluntly tells her that she's overworking herself. Shinobu easily admits that it's an old habit of hers to take on everything. She says she does it because she wants to be praised. Realizing how selfish that sounds, she immediately tries to take it back, but Aris has already processed her words. He tells her that she has this perfect image of herself that she wants to achieve. He acknowledges that it's a lofty goal and that the pressure she puts on herself must be overwhelming. Still, he assures her that she doesn't need to worry anymore because he's around now, and he'll draw everyone's attention to himself instead. Shinobu stares at him, stunned. His tone softens, becoming gentler as he reassures her that she doesn't have to do everything alone. She can rely on others and on him. He tells her she deserves a break and should allow herself to have fun every now and then. Aris turns to leave, but his words linger with Shinobu. Before he can get too far, she suddenly grabs his hand and asks him to have some fun with her. They end up in the library, where Shinobu instructs Aris to close his eyes. Though he obeys, unease settles in his chest. Just before Shinobu can place a piece of chocolate into his mouth, he catches a glimpse of it and quickly moves away because he nearly broke a rule. Shinobu smiles candidly, amused that she was caught. They settle into their seats, Shinobu's work spread out in front of them. She explains that she finds working and snacking oddly comforting. Aris looks at the sweets, amazed at how many snacks Shinobu managed to sneak into school, even though bringing them is technically forbidden. That apparently is why she brought him along as insurance. She tries to feed him a Pocky stick so he would be a fellow rebel, but he clenches his teeth, absolutely refusing to break the rules. Still, he reassures her that he won't tell a soul about this. He then asks why she chose to work and eat snacks in the library. Shinobu explains that she needs access to the copier, which makes Aris realize just how heavy her workload is. He offers to take 2/3 of it, insisting that he handle it himself since he's noticed she's a little sick. Shinobu smiles and calls him reliable, but Aris tells her she should just be honest and let the others help more. Though she looks like she is considering the suggestion, she refuses and says she's happy with how she handles things. She compares herself to a small strawberry chocolate, insisting that her role is to enhance the sweetness of other things. She goes on to tell Aris that she finds the other members of the broadcast club amazing. She admires how headstrong they are in pursuing their dreams, where talent means everything. Instead of chasing what she personally wants, she'd rather help them achieve what they want. Shinobu also mentions that the other girls tend to stir up trouble, so it's important for her to keep them in check. Unable to stop herself, Shinobu starts recounting all the problems the broadcast club faced during last year's sports festival. That's why she wants this year's festival to be a success, especially since she plans to quit the club by fall. The news catches Aris off guard. Shinobu explains that she needs better grades to enter a prestigious university. Most announcers come from top schools, so she needs to lay the groundwork now if she wants to succeed in the industry. Aris calms down after hearing her reasoning. He understands her logic, but still ends up exploding over her decision. He bluntly calls her weak, saying it's still possible for her to succeed and stay in the club. She weakly argues that aiming for too much might leave her with nothing in the end. Aris sighs, crouches down to her level, and asks who she sees in front of her. She answers flatly that he's just the errand boy, an answer that clearly doesn't impress him. He reminds her that he's here to help her. If she has problems with her grades, he'll help her study, along with anything else she might need. She can do whatever she wants because she will always have someone she can lean on. He offers his hand, reminding her that he already promised to lead her toward becoming a professional. She takes it and lets him pull her up. Aris admits that he can't stand the thought of her leaving and tells her that she should never sell herself short since she's just as charming as the other members of the broadcast club. Shinobu blushes at the compliment and eventually sits back down as Aris asks if she already has a plan for the sports festival. She admits that she does, so Aris offers to help draft her presentation. Shinobu shyly asks him to keep everything a secret from the girls. At first, Aris assumes she means the illegal snacking, but she clarifies that she doesn't want them to know about her plans to quit the club, her inferiority complex, or how he helped her find confidence again. Instead of answering, Aris responds by eating some of the snacks, effectively becoming her partner in crime. Shinobu giggles at the crumbs around his mouth, giddy over their shared secret. The next day, Shinobu presents her idea to the girls, calling it The Messenger. The girls are immediately on board, confident it will be a hit. They quickly begin discussing logistics and how to convince their advisor, while Shinobu and Aris exchange subtle gestures over their shared secret. On the day of the festival, everyone is shocked during the sprint when Aris manages to beat the athletes. Instead of stopping, he keeps running straight to the commentator's table and announces his own victory. Nene finally arrives, apologizing for running late. Soon they hear Rika's voice announcing the start of another event. Iko comes to pick her up since they're participating in the scavenger hunt. When they arrive, they spot Aris doing the commentary. Iko remarks that he somehow makes everything sound overly dramatic to the point of being embarrassing. Meanwhile, she and Rika pick up notes that describe what they need to get. To Aris' surprise, both girls rush up to him and insist that he follow them. Curious about what's written on their notes, he asks, but they refuse to answer and continue dragging him forward. Not wanting to lose either, Aris suddenly scoots both girls up, earning shocked reactions from the crowd as he dashes ahead at an incredible speed. Unfortunately, it still isn't enough. Iko and Rika try to find out what was written on each other's papers, but both decide it's too embarrassing to reveal. Aris rushes to the chariot event he's supposed to join with Shinobu. When he arrives, Shinobu is standing in front of two teammates who were injured earlier. Shinobu suggests sitting the event out, but Aris refuses to back down. Iko is handling the commentary for this event and quickly notices that Nene is acting as a horse for another team. Meanwhile, Aris and Shinobu enter as a two-person team, with Aris carrying Shinobu alone over his shoulder. Shinobu finds the situation deeply embarrassing, but Aris feels no shame since quitting is far worse for him. Iko settles for wishing everyone luck, deliberately avoiding comments about their strange formation or whether it even follows the rules. Nene's team is the first to target Shinobu's bandana. They bicker as Nene grows increasingly nervous. When she starts to hesitate, Aris feels concerned. But in the middle of it all, Shinobu's bandana gets taken. When Shinobu tells him, Aris drops to his knees in despair as Nene's team moves on to steal another bandana. Shinobu tries to comfort him, and Nene notices just how close the two of them have become. She scolds herself when she realizes she's starting to feel jealous. But she's so lost in thought that she almost forgets she still has to run to protect her rider. Eventually, there's an intermission before the next round of events, and the club retreats to their club room to rest. Despite their exhaustion, everyone feels relieved that they're doing well. Aris then brings up their own event, The Messenger. In the event, students can use string phones to relay messages to the broadcast club, which will then be announced anonymously. Aris thinks the idea would work just as well with written messages, but Shinobu insists that hearing the sender's voice is essential so they can properly convey the emotion when announcing it. She then reveals the flyers she's already prepared. Aris wonders why they don't just announce the event outright, but the girls immediately explain that the teachers would shut it down before it even starts. By spreading the word this way, it'll take time for the teachers to catch on. And by then, the event should already be popular enough that it won't be stopped. As a backup, Shinobu is spearheading the project, and her good reputation might help smooth things over. Shinobu smiles, admitting that this is something she's always wanted to do. She feels confident it'll become a memory worth cherishing. Just as they're about to start handing out flyers, Lemon, their club advisor, enters the club room, already aware of what they're planning. Lemon reads over the proposal and listens to their request to hold the event during the lunch broadcast. However, she is quick to deny them. The girls voice their complaints, but Lemon breezily tells them that she does not want to be involved in any trouble. Aris takes this opportunity to introduce himself and try to convince Lemon that their idea is worthwhile, but she does not even listen to him and immediately shuts him down. She openly states her dislike of allowing boys into the club in the first place. Shinobu steps forward and bows deeply, begging Lemon to allow them to proceed with the event. Lemon remains unmoved at first, but Shinobu then adds that Lemon herself could benefit from this. She points out how well the broadcast club has been performing during the festival and suggests that their success will reflect positively on Lemon as their advisor. Seeing how Lemon's eyes brighten, the rest of the club begins to join in to convince her. This finally catches her attention. Lemon sits back in her advisor's chair and tells them they may go ahead with their idea. She then asks how they plan to proceed. When she hears that they intend to hand out flyers, she immediately says that their plan will not work. At that moment, they hear Samejima, one of the PE teachers, loudly ordering boys and girls to remain separated. Lemon explains that he's keeping a strict watch over students during lunch, meaning handing out flyers would get them caught instantly. The girls begin scrambling to think of another plan. But Lemon suddenly offers to distract Samejima for 10 minutes, just enough time for the club to distribute their flyers. With that, Lemon officially declares the start of their operation. Out on the field, Samejima is aggressively directing students when Lemon approaches him and suggests that he take a break. He initially refuses, but when Lemon attempts to be charming, he quickly changes his mind. Her eye twitches. The girls rush out to hand out flyers, but soon realize they are moving too slowly and won't reach enough students in time. Suddenly, Nene calls the group into a huddle. She then proposes a new idea. After hearing the plan, Rika hesitates, but since everyone else agrees, she ultimately goes along with it. Moments later, the girls return in full cosplay, enthusiastically urging students to take a flyer and join their event. Their appearance immediately draws attention from all around the field. Even Aris is shocked by how boldly and effectively the girls are handling the situation, understanding why Nene had asked him to leave. As Aris smiles at their efforts, Lemon suddenly runs toward him with an eager Samejima chasing after her. She explains that she can't hold him off any longer. Samejima notices the growing crowd, so Aris quickly ushers the girls back into the broadcast room. They manage to make it inside safely. Now all that's left is to wait for students to join their event. Rika gathers everyone to review the procedure one last time. They have designated the classroom next door as the waiting room, where some members will assist participants. The room is kept dark to ensure privacy. When it is a student's turn to confess, they will step outside and use the string phone placed just outside the broadcast room. Shinobu will be the one receiving the message. The girls huddle together and cheer before quickly taking their positions. Shinobu stands by the broadcasting table, feeling surreal that her event is finally happening. She is nervous, but the first knock signals that a student is ready to confess. She picks up the string phone and begins reciting her prepared lines. Suddenly, she hears a familiar voice telling her that if she flubs her lines, she must do a dare. She immediately realizes it is one of the other girls from the club. She opens the door only to see them walking away, teasing her because they know she can't tell which one spoke. Shinobu looks back at the string phone and realizes that its distortion makes voices completely unrecognizable. Lunch break finally begins. Shinobu announces the morning results and officially introduces their special event. Samejima hears this and grows suspicious, but Lemon is already prepared to distract him once again. Shinobu receives the first confession and gets ready to announce it. The message is from a girl who has fallen in love with a boy named Shindo from Class 2A. When his name is read aloud, Shindo spits out his drink in shock as students around him erupt in chatter. The confession explains that she wants to date him and asks him to stand if he is willing to accept her feelings. Without hesitation, Shindo stands up, and the crowd bursts into cheers. The broadcast reaches the faculty room, but the teachers seem amused rather than angry. They remark that the only one who would truly oppose this is Samejima, who at that moment is still being distracted by Lemon and doesn't even hear the announcement. After the success of the first confession, other students begin to seriously consider participating as well. They voice their eagerness to confess their feelings without the need to be there in person. Meanwhile, in the waiting room, Nene peeks out the window, basking in the excitement surrounding their event. Rika quickly reminds her to keep the room dark, pointing out that this was Shinobu's idea from the start. Rika reflects on how brilliant Shinobu's plan is. She explains that many students probably want to say something but feel too awkward to do it directly, and this event gives them the perfect chance while keeping their identity a secret. Outside, another student confesses through the broadcast, but this time the girl rejects the confessor. Nene peeks out again in curiosity, only for Rika to scold her once more. Iko suddenly asks the two girls if there is anything they would like to confess. Both Nene and Rika immediately turn red, thinking she meant a love confession. Sensing their panic, Iko clarifies that it doesn't have to be a love confession. Relieved, Nene admits that there is someone she wants to thank, but she finds it difficult to face him because they are always butting heads. She adds that she also wants to apologize to him. Rika then shares that there is someone she has been cold toward lately, and she wants to clear the air with him. She laughs nervously and asks Iko what she would want to say. Iko admits that she recently voice chatted with someone and suddenly went quiet, which worries her because she might have made him anxious. She says she wants to tell him that she is perfectly fine. Before they can continue, more students arrive at the waiting room. The girls eagerly welcome them in, though their thoughts keep drifting back to Aris. Suddenly, the entire school hears a sharp feedback screech from the microphone. Shinobu panics as the broadcast equipment begins to malfunction. She rushes to the controls but quickly realizes that trying to fix it might make things even worse. Overwhelmed, she crouches down in fear, convinced she is about to fail again. The other girls burst into the room, and Shinobu can't hold back her tears. Rika and Iko examine the equipment together, but neither of them knows how to repair it. Reluctantly, they realize they have no choice but to stop the event. However, Shinobu refuses to give up. She opens the window of the broadcast room and declares that she will continue the announcement using only her own voice. The girls try desperately to stop her, warning that she could damage her throat, but Shinobu is determined to keep the event running. Just then, they are all stunned when Aris appears in the room holding a megaphone. He casually reveals that he stole it from Samejima earlier with Lemon's help. Aris tells the girls that using the megaphone is their best option, since they have no idea how long it will take to repair the equipment. To everyone's surprise, Shinobu suddenly hugs him in front of all of them, openly thanking him for always coming through for her. Aris leans close and whispers that he is still her partner in crime. He hands her the megaphone and insists that she continue the event, since they already have several clients waiting. From the open window, Shinobu announces that they will proceed with the confessions using a megaphone, calling it a special twist for their event. She invites everyone to gather in the courtyard so they can hear better, and students immediately begin heading there. The girls rush back to their stations only to realize that Aris has already slipped away. As more confessions come in, Shinobu receives one addressed specifically to Aris. She carries on with the broadcast. The next message turns out to be a confession about the hole in the wall, which makes the crowd burst into laughter at how bizarre it is. Meanwhile, Aris stands among the gathered students, now back in his regular uniform since his sports duties are finished. From this point on, he plans to focus entirely on helping the broadcast club. Shinobu then announces that the next confession will be the final one, even though many students have already confessed. She explains that the confessor wants to apologize for betraying someone who had been devoted to her 3 years ago. The crowd assumes it's about a painful breakup. Shinobu continues, saying the confessor regrets breaking a promise and was shocked to hear his voice again after all this time. As Iris listens, a sinking feeling settles in. The story sounds far too familiar, and he becomes almost certain the message is from Apollo. Suddenly, Shinobu lowers the megaphone. In her own clear voice, she calls out his first name and tells him that she loves him. Then she lifts the megaphone again, formally declaring the end of their noon event and wishing everyone luck for the remaining sports competitions in the afternoon. The crowd buzzes with curiosity over the unexpected confession. Iris, however, is deeply confused. Apollo had always ended her broadcasts with an "I love you" before, but this is the first time she has ever said it just for him. He decides to head to the club room to find out the truth. Meanwhile, the three girls in the waiting room look uneasy and restless. Iris spots Shinobu in the hallway and immediately confronts her. Shinobu, however, insists that it wasn't her and that she has no idea who delivered the final confession. Noticing how badly she is shaking, Iris chooses to set aside his search for Apollo for the moment. Instead, he congratulates Shinobu on the event, telling her how successful it was and even pointing out that she didn't flub her lines like she usually does. Hearing his praise finally breaks her. Tears well up in her eyes as she confesses how terrified she had been at wasting the club's time. Iris panics slightly and tries to calm her down, worried that her crying might cause a misunderstanding. Shinobu doesn't care. She hugs him anyway. If they end up getting scolded by a teacher, then they'll face it together. Later, the school begins its cleanup now that the sports events are over. Lemon supervises the students but pointedly refuses to lift a finger herself. Meanwhile, Iris rushes back to the club room to help tidy up. He is worried the girls will scold him for not helping. Just then, his phone chimes, signaling a message from Apollo. She tells him that she will be waiting for him in the broadcast room. Without hesitation, Iris sprints there. When he reaches the door, he notices the string phone still hanging outside. He picks it up and hears Apollo's voice greeting him. Apollo confesses that she is using this method since she is still scared of facing him. He asked her directly about the confession. Apollo admits that she really did want to express her feelings, and that she was tired of hiding the fact that she had run away from her radio show. Iris jokes that she should just show herself in person, but to his shock, Apollo replies that she might actually do so. Since she was the one who told him to come to the broadcast room, her intention was to reveal herself to him. After the sports festival, the broadcast club celebrates the success of their event at Lemon's house that evening. The girls are confused about why they had to change out of their uniforms, so Lemon explains that it would cause trouble if they were seen still wearing them. For tonight, she says they are not students or a club, they are just friends hanging out together. The group decides to make a toast and Rika is made to lead it. She accepts and congratulates everyone for all the work they have done, making a special mention of Shinobu's efforts. Then she thanks Lemon for paying for everything, which shocks Lemon, who immediately protests that she doesn't have much money. As the girls cheer, Rika casually adds that this is Lemon's punishment for slacking off on her work as their advisor. Lemon decides not to argue further and instead looks around the room, suddenly noticing how dressed up everyone is. She immediately teases Iris, claiming that the girls clearly dressed up to impress him. All of them, except Rika, hurriedly make excuses about their outfits being a coincidence. Rika, however, boldly admits that she chose hers on purpose, hoping Iris would compliment her. When Lemon turns to Iris for his opinion, he's already fast asleep from sheer exhaustion. Rika approaches him, half teasing and half scolding him for dozing off so suddenly without getting the chance to see her in a nice outfit. Since Iris is out cold anyway, the girls decide to continue with a girls-only gathering. They at least move him properly onto the bed so he can rest comfortably before heading out together to buy food to share. On the way out, Iko casually remarks on the bean sprouts growing in the bathroom. Lemon insists that it's actually a very practical place for them since water is always available. After some time passes, Iko is the first to return. She calmly puts the food she bought into the fridge and quietly approaches the still sleeping Iris. Lying beside him on the bed, she softly wonders about his hug with Shinobu and quietly asks whether the two of them might already be dating. Not long after, Nene also comes back. She notices Iko's shoes by the entrance, sets down her own food, and walks into the room, only to freeze when she sees Iko leaning over Iris like she's about to kiss him. When Iko leans in again, Nene finally reveals herself, startling Iko and making her stop mid-movement. For a moment, both girls awkwardly pretend that nothing just happened. They sit together at the edge of the bed and start talking, with Nene subtly trying to coax out what Iko was really about to do. Her own curiosity surprises her because logically, she feels like it shouldn't matter to her at all if Iko had decided to kiss him. Finally, Iko shyly asks how long Nene had been back. Nene panics and hurriedly insists that she's just arrived, but before she can say anything else, Iko suddenly asks if Nene has ever kissed someone. After a moment of stunned silence, Nene gathers herself and decides to answer honestly that she's already kissed someone. However, she carefully omits that it was with Oris and that a manga had been awkwardly sandwiched between them. Iko is so impressed by how mature Nene sounds that she barely registers Nene's next question. Nene bluntly asks whether Iko likes Oris, openly admitting that she caught her almost kissing him. Iko turns bright red and starts panicking again, scratching her head in a desperate attempt to calm herself. When she finally manages to speak normally, Iko admits that she isn't sure if she has feelings for Oris since this is the first time she has ever felt something like this. She then turns the question around and asks Nene what she feels for him. At first, Nene firmly says that she hates boys. After a beat, however, she reluctantly adds that Oris might be the exception. Before Iko can fully process this admission, they suddenly hear Shinobu calling for them. Both girls immediately panic and search the room for somewhere to hide. Shinobu enters the room and finds it empty, looking confused when she is sure she saw that Iko's and Nene's shoes were already by the entrance. In reality, the two girls are hiding under the bed. Shinobu sits down on the edge of the bed and softly speaks to the sleeping Oris, saying she wants to apologize for a few things. First, she brings up the hug. She admits that she acted on her feelings in that moment because he saved their event and hopes he doesn't mind. She gently takes his hand and confesses that she actually liked the hug. Then she says she also needs to apologize for lying to him. She begins to explain that it's about the confession event, but before she can go further, she hears Rika entering the apartment. In a panic, Shinobu tries to crawl under the bed, only to discover Nene and Iko already hiding there. Somehow, she squeezes in just in time before Rika steps into the room. Like Shinobu earlier, Rika assumes she is the first one back. Seeing that Oris is still asleep, she decides to change her clothes right there, shocking the girls beneath the bed. After switching into something more conservative, she walks over to him and mutters in annoyance that he didn't even compliment her earlier. Tentatively, she touches his fingers and is surprised to feel the familiar calyces, a clear sign that he is still playing the guitar. She tells him quietly that she's writing a new song but suddenly hears Iko sneeze. Realizing the sound came from under the bed, Rika bends down, looks underneath, and confronts all three girls at once. Eventually, Oris wakes up and the first thing he notices is all the girls sitting around the table looking unusually depressed. He wonders aloud if they fought and they reluctantly admit that they did, but over something he never would have expected. The girls reveal that they all came back with whole cakes, which means they now have nothing but different cakes to eat. Each of them confesses that she wanted to bring Oris something sweet to help him recover from his exhaustion. Not wanting to disappoint them, Oris immediately starts digging in. He boldly declares that he has a huge sweet tooth and that 4 cakes are nothing to him. Still, the girls watch with concern as he clearly struggles to finish the cakes they bought for him. A few moments later, Lemon strolls in and proudly announces that she also bought a cake, much to Oris's despair. To everyone's shock, Oris somehow manages to finish all of it. Now seated on the couch, he grimaces when Lemon cheerfully insists that he should eat her cake too. Desperate to avoid more sugar, Oris quickly suggests that they play a game instead to mark the occasion. Lemon agrees and brings out a deck of cards and a Jenga set, declaring that whoever loses must eat the entire cake. She then sits back on the couch with a can of beer and says she'll sit out, claiming she doesn't allow herself carbs past 8 p.m. Nene immediately chooses Jenga, not wanting to play any thinking games since she's sure she'd lose to Oris. Oris smugly confirms that he's very good at strategy games. With the tower set up, Nene goes first. She takes so long, carefully pulling out her block and placing it on top, that she's stunned when the other girls breeze through their turns with ease. When it's Oris's turn, he asks if he can poke around the tower before deciding. Lemon gives him permission, noting that he clearly knows what he's doing since that's a classic Jenga tactic. Oris casually mentions that his family used to play Jenga sometimes. He then quickly finds an easy block, removes it smoothly, and places it on top of the tower. He ends his turn with a confident smirk, which immediately annoys Nene. The girls notice how certain he looks about winning. Meanwhile, Rika seems slightly disappointed that Oris didn't even comment on her changed outfit. As they chat and Nene struggles with her next move, Oris suddenly feels drowsy from all the cake. His gaze drifts over his clubmates as a thought crosses his mind. One of the girls is definitely Apollo, since she had been in the club room that afternoon. He recalls that in their conversation, Apollo had already been willing to reveal herself, but Oris was the one who chose not to know. He reasoned that he wanted to uncover her identity on his own. If she simply told him, it would feel like defeat. He declared that by the time all the club members became professionals, he would be able to determine who she really is. Apollo expressed doubts about his plan. She asked whether his goal was truly to make her into a professional, but Oris said it was for a more personal reason, one he wasn't ready to share yet. He added that after hearing all the members' voices, he'd have found a new goal. He told her that he wanted to become a producer, someone who could work on music, create programs, and even be involved in anime. That way, he could work alongside her. Apollo found his declaration amusing, but also a little self-centered. She then told him to close his eyes. He complied, and when he did, she opened the door. Aris panicked at how careless she was being, but when he heard no reaction from outside, he opened his eyes only to find that Apollo had already slipped away. Returning from the memory, he snaps back to the present when he hears Nene call his name. To his shock, the Jenga tower in front of him has completely transformed. While he was spaced out, the four girls had teamed up to build an impossibly unstable tower, one that could collapse with a single touch. He protests that this should be against the rules, but Lemon casually reveals that she already gave the girls permission to proceed. Aris mutters that he should have seen this coming, weakly questioning Lemon's credibility as a teacher. Nene grows impatient and tells him to hurry up and take his turn. Studying the tower, Aris realizes that his usual strategy is useless. Forced to rely purely on his eyes, he carefully scans every block before locking onto one in the center. He slowly pulls it out, shocking everyone. For a brief moment, the tower remains perfectly still. Then, almost in slow motion, it begins to tilt and fall straight toward him. The girls gasp because they had actually thought he might win for a second. Nene breaks into a triumphant grin, and the instant the blocks crash onto the table, she cheers in victory. Moments later, Aris and the girls step outside Lemon's apartment. The girls admire the full moon hanging in the night sky. Aris walks a little behind them as his thoughts drift back to the afternoon. After Apollo had left the room, he had closed his eyes again and turned away from the corridor, hoping she might still be lingering nearby. In that moment, he had confessed that he had been a longtime fan and that he was happy to have found her again and to be able to hear her voice once more. He remembers how Shinobu had delivered Apollo's confession, this time directed only to him. He feels grateful to her for that as well, since it was the first time Apollo had ever addressed him by his name. Back in the present, he can't help but feel a little uneasy that he still can't identify Apollo's voice. The girls notice him lagging behind and stop until he catches up. Shinobu gently comments that he must be exhausted. Aris insists that he isn't any more tired than they are, since the broadcast club had all worked incredibly hard today. His voice brightens as he tells them that they should be proud of themselves for a job well done. Nene is initially offended since his tone sounds almost like he was the one in charge, but after a beat, she softly agrees. Nene and Rika then share that they had a lot of fun with the proxy confession event, which surprises Shinobu. They admit that it was difficult to pull off, but say that it's something they'd like to do again someday. Shinobu smiles at their enthusiasm over an event she created. She agrees that they should do it again someday, then looks at each of her club members and sincerely thanks them for all the work they did to make the event a success. In response, everyone smiles back at her. Aris smiles too, but his expression subtly dims when he recalls Apollo's final whisper to him. His eyes had been closed when she whispered that she would cherish his words. One afternoon, Rika holds her usual concert. As she sings her final song, Aris notices that she has gained more fans, although she still has not performed any original songs. In the crowd, he spots an unfamiliar girl named Aiko, who used to be Rika's bandmate. Rika notices Aiko leaving, unconsciously stops singing mid-song, and ends her concert early. Aris senses that Rika and Aiko know each other, so he approaches Aiko. However, she completely ignores him and keeps walking. He calls out to her several times, but she refuses to acknowledge him. Finally, he pulls out a red balloon and threatens to pop it right next to her, which finally grabs her attention. Aris immediately asks why she was ignoring him. When Aiko bluntly says it is because she finds him annoying, he argues that he is not. He then asks why she seemed irritated during Rika's performance. Instead of answering directly, Aiko asks what he thinks about Rika's concerts. Aris replies that Rika is doing well since she is familiar with popular songs and can skillfully imitate the singing styles of many artists. Aiko looks dissatisfied. She explains that it is the songs that are popular, not Rika herself. Under her breath, she mutters that Rika was not like this before. Realizing that Aiko must be an old friend, Aris tries to ask about their past, but Aiko suddenly storms off, so he decides to follow her. Meanwhile, Rika sits alone in a karaoke room to start working seriously on original songs. However, she quickly becomes unhappy with every set of lyrics she writes. Frustrated, she wonders if she should just quit and tell Aris. A knock interrupts her thoughts. When she gets up to decline the drink, she finds Aris standing there instead. She smiles and asks how he knew she would be at the karaoke bar. Aris reveals that an old friend of hers told him. Rika suspects Aiko, only to find out that Aiko hasn't even given her name to Aris. He explains that he approached Aiko because she was the only one in the crowd who looked bored during the concert. Rika asks what Aiko said about her performance, but Aris simply replies that Rika probably already knows the feedback. Rika admits that Aiko was upset with her for choosing to cover songs instead of performing originals. Aris then asks why she still cannot sing her original pieces. Before he can press further, Rika suddenly covers his mouth and boldly declares that the reason is too embarrassing. So Rika proposes a karaoke battle with her secret on the line. She begins flipping through the songbook, but Aris takes it from her and insists on a handicap. He chooses the final song from her concert the previous day and adds that she must perform the dance as well. When the music starts, Rika nervously steps forward. She begins singing shakily, clearly self-conscious about her appearance. Watching her, Aris feels confident. He knows that when Rika does something she dislikes, she tends to hold back and become overly aware. However, Rika suddenly stops the track and restarts the song. This time, she moves into the musical intro effortlessly, dancing as if the rhythm is ingrained in her body. When the lyrics begin again, her voice flows smoothly and confidently, catching Aris off guard. He watches her closely and realizes that she has been suppressing far more talent than he expected. During the instrumental break, she approaches him and teasingly asks which part of her looks nervous now, though in truth, she's only pretending to be confident. A staff member enters to deliver her tea, but upon seeing their proximity, quickly excuses himself and leaves. When the scoring appears, Rika earns nearly a 96. Aris begins to panic slightly since he is not certain he can score that high. Determined, he selects a song he knows well and confidently tells Rika to prepare herself, boasting that he has a beautiful voice. When the music starts, Rika is surprised by Aris' choice. As he begins singing, she cannot help but think that he is not particularly skilled vocally. Still, the song itself holds meaning for her. When the results appear, Aris scores nearly 20 points lower than Rika. He immediately argues that the machine must be malfunctioning. Rika ignores his complaints and instead asks why he chose that song. Aris remembers that when he spoke to Aiko earlier, he noticed she was wearing a band shirt and asked if she liked that group. Aiko admitted that she did, and it happened to be Rika's favorite band as well. He also remembers that Apollo once enthusiastically talked about the same band during her broadcasts. He tells Rika that Hub Notes is a band he loves and was recommended to him by someone. Rika smiles at his answer, then agrees to tell him why she stopped singing original songs. Aris is startled, but Rika insists that he actually sang better than she did, and that the score does not matter. Aris celebrates loudly. Then once he settles down, Rika explains that several things happened that made her afraid of performing her original music. She admits that seeing even a hint of disappointment in the audience when she performs her own songs terrifies her. With cover songs, she can hide safely behind music that people already love. Aris sits quietly, processing her confession. Her fear makes sense, but he also understands that it is something she must overcome if she truly wants to become a professional. Rika adds that she has been trying to write new songs lately, but fear suddenly overwhelms her, leaving her unable to continue. Aris thinks carefully about what he can say to help. Absent-mindedly, he takes a sip of her tea and admits that he once felt something similar. When he was younger, he was forced to join activities and was often pushed onto the stage. Rika asks how he managed to overcome his fear. Instead of answering directly, Aris suggests that she start by performing her old original songs again. He proposes holding a small concert featuring only her original pieces, so she can slowly grow accustomed to singing her own work in front of others again. Rika immediately starts to protest, but Aris firmly insists. She calls him insensitive, yet when she sees that he has no intention of backing down, she reluctantly agrees to go along with his plan. They decide to hold the concert a week later on the rooftop. On the day of the concert, Rika stares at the staircase leading up to the roof. She wonders why Aris didn't just hold it in her usual spot. The change in location only makes her nerves spike. She had thought Aris would be more considerate of her feelings. Instead, his actions remind her of a certain man she once knew back when she was actively making music. Shakily, she reaches for the handle and opens the rooftop door, prepared to tell Aris she won't go through with the concert. But she notices that only her club members are there. Aris tells her that this concert is meant to help her practice singing her own songs again. He wouldn't throw her into the wolves without preparation. The girls reassure her that they're here to help her overcome her fears. Aris locks the door so no one can accidentally walk in. Rika opens the concert with a short speech, but she struggles to get the words out and admits she's nervous. Aris worries her trauma might be deeper than he initially thought. Then the girls pull out handmade cheering fans for Rika. They sheepishly admit they made them at the last minute, but promise to prepare better ones for her real concert someday. Shinobu adds that Rika can always look their way if she starts feeling nervous. Rika smiles at their unwavering support and begins to sing. They're instantly transported back to their middle school days when Rika used to hold mini concerts just for them as they talked about their futures and cheered her on toward her dream. Rika remembers the promise she made back then, that she would give these girls front row seats to her first big concert. When the concert ends, Rika scolds Aris for not telling her it was a private performance because it had shattered her trust in him. Now he has to make it up to her by treating her to karaoke so he can help her practice. Aris pales and asks how much his credit score with her has dropped. Rika tells him it's down to 80. Aris thinks back to the private concert. A lot of the songs definitely needed work, but they had a charm that was uniquely Rika's. He still has no idea why she stopped writing altogether when she clearly has talent for it, but thanks to the broadcast club's efforts, he believes Rika is finally heading in the right direction. As he watches them hug Rika after the concert, he is sure the four girls will be able to overcome any hurdle thrown at them as long as they continue to share this close bond. So on their next day off, Aris brings them to a large shopping mall with the goal of strengthening their bond. They split up to check the area out, but Shinobu hangs back and asks Aris to help her pick out some clothes. Aris thinks the other girls would have better opinions, but Shinobu quietly admits she has gained some weight and doesn't want the others to find out. She quickly rushes toward a store and urges him to follow. She tries on pieces that look nice on display, and Aris diligently scores each one, pointing out their good features. He notices that most of the clothes she chose are white, prompting Shinobu to admit that she simply likes white clothing. Aris recalls that Apollo shared the same love for white outfits. As he observes Shinobu more closely, he realizes that all four girls show traces of Apollo other than their voices. Shinobu catches him staring and teasingly suggests that he must really like the outfit she's wearing. Without hesitation, Aris admits that it's the one that makes her look the cutest. Shinobu immediately grows shy and retreats back into the dressing room. After leaving the shop, Aris wonders where the other three girls went, but Iko suddenly crashes into his back, pleading for his help. She drags him to a row of crane games and shows him a plushie stuck in the chute, explaining that she has already spent a lot of money trying to win it. Aris confidently reassures her that he's a crane game expert and promises to get it out. With careful movements, he uses the crane to push the plush down the chute, and to Iko's delight, it drops out perfectly. When he hands it to her, she immediately rubs it against herself, explaining that she doesn't want it to carry unfamiliar scents. Aris recalls that Apollo once mentioned having the same habit. He's about to question her about it, but Iko quickly dismisses him. Grumbling, Aris looks around for the remaining girls and spots Nene calling out to him because she ordered too much takoyaki. As he walks toward her, he remembers that Apollo's favorite topping was mentai mayo, so he casually asks what flavor she ordered. Nene reveals she got green onions and mentai mayo, which shocks Aris enough to make him raise his voice. When he asks for a toothpick, Nene decides to feed him instead, since she was only given one to share. After he finishes chewing, she teasingly asks if it feels good being fed by a super cute girl like her. Aris refuses to answer and instead asks about Rika's whereabouts. Nene tells him that Rika is by the pond watching ducks, which prompts Aris to run off immediately. Nene sighs in disappointment that he left so quickly while she was still trying to tease him. By evening, Aris gathers everyone at a karaoke bar and announces that they will deepen their bond there instead. Rika teasingly comments that Aris must have really enjoyed their previous karaoke date, which shocks the other three girls. Rika decides to sing first and ends up choosing the same song he sang. Aris begins to wonder if this is some kind of hint that she is the real Apollo. However, the other girls suddenly start singing along, which forces Aris to stop the song in shock. They reveal that they are all fans of the band, yet strangely enough, none of them can remember how they were first introduced to the band, something that mirrors Apollo's own forgetfulness. One morning, Aris arrives at the broadcast room and greets the members. All of them return the greeting except Nene. He walks over to check on her, but when she doesn't respond, he ends up shifting his attention back to the others. That only makes Nene angrier, yelling that he should have asked her what was wrong. Deciding to humor her, Aris does exactly that. However, Nene suddenly turns shy and says she doesn't want to tell him anything. The mixed signals irritate Aris. Nene then snaps again and storms out of the room, claiming she has better things to do. Shinobu explains that Nene recently joined the theater club as a temporary member, but from what they can tell, she isn't getting along with the members. This surprises Aris, since he assumed Nene could get along with anyone. However, the broadcast club points out that Nene is actually quite picky about who she chooses to be nice to. Thinking about her personality, Aris realizes they're right. The girls then ask if he can help her out, but Aris says that this time, something only Nene can resolve on her own. Iko pouts at that answer, and Aris quickly backtracks, claiming that since he's special, he can definitely help Nene after all. Later, during theater club practice, Aris quietly observes from the doorway. Sarah, one of the members, gives her all during rehearsal. The others mention that she's always trying her hardest because she hopes to marry a rich man someday. Nene and Sarah are assigned to act out a dramatic scene between two lovers. Sarah pours all her emotion into the lines, but Nene's delivery completely mismatches the tone. She sounds overly cheerful for such an intense moment. Sarah snaps and asks if Nene even read the script properly. Even Aris is surprised at how meek Nene's acting sounds. Sarah tries to explain the emotional complexity of the scene, and when she imitates Nene's delivery, she dramatically throws herself against the equipment. Nene insists she thought the scene through and was genuinely acting. But Sarah isn't satisfied. She explains that acting is about feeling first, not overthinking every line. Nene falls silent, unable to respond, which only disappoints Sarah further. The girls decide to try the scene again. Nene looks troubled. From her perspective, she delivered the lines correctly, so she genuinely doesn't understand what she did wrong. She feels frustrated for being scolded when they were the ones who asked her to help in the first place. Unlike anime or manga, she doesn't have a clear reference, so she relies entirely on logic and analysis when she acts. During her turn, her delivery comes out almost exactly the same as before, just slightly more strained. Sarah suggests that maybe Nene needs to use the restroom, which only makes Nene more frustrated. Watching from the door, Aris is shocked at how meek Nene becomes outside her comfort zone. The next day, after the noontime broadcast, the girls, except for Nene, begin leaving the room. Nene stays behind, visibly angrier than usual, and the others peek at her from outside the door. They're worried since her mood has been getting worse with each passing day. Nene starts grumbling about the theater club, especially how Sarah's advice never makes sense to her. After venting, she grows quiet. Her thoughts drift to how she has always tried her best to make her father proud. Right in the middle of her brooding, Aris walks in and casually reveals that he watched her theater practice the day before. Nene braces herself, expecting him to offer encouragement. Instead, Aris asks why her hair ties look like stag beetle horns. Without hesitation, she throws him across the room and yells at him for being annoying. Aris only chuckles and tells Nene that what she just did was act on impulse. He casually asks if she even stopped to think before throwing him. Nene responds by hurling a heavy bag his way. When she tries to storm out, Aris encourages her to lean into those impulsive emotions even more. Overwhelmed, Nene suddenly bursts into loud tears, frustrated over all the scolding she has been receiving lately. Aris looks pleased. He tells her she's finally doing well by letting her emotions take control and urges her to keep going. After classes, Aris informs Nene that their special training will focus on helping her get into character. While others can slip into roles naturally, he knows they need a different approach for her. The character she's playing is a girl who has been cheated on. So in order for Nene to understand how that feels, Aris claims she needs to experience being cheated on herself. Without hesitation, he apologizes in advance for cheating on her in the future. Nene yells that they are not even dating. Aris ignores the outburst and calmly begins describing the scene she struggles with. He asks how she would feel if she were the character. Aris points out that delivering those lines should feel painful. Aris presses further, saying that she needs to experience those conflicting emotions. Nene asks if this means they're going to pretend to date again like last time. She says she doesn't mind, but wonders who he's even supposed to cheat on her with. Hiko appears from behind Aris and announces that it will be her, because she also loves Aris. Nene is completely stunned, so Aris quickly tells her not to take it seriously since it's all fake anyway. Nene doubts how effective this will be since everything is staged. However, Aris confidently taunts her by mentioning how Sarah has been scolding her repeatedly. Seeing Nene's expression shift, Aris pushes further and throws out harsh lines he imagines Sarah might use. Her face changes again, and this time Aris knows he's reached her. He asks if she wants revenge for all the scolding, and Nene declares that she does. Shinobu and Rika are watching from outside as Aris announces that their special training will officially begin soon. As Aris prepares to leave, he notices Nene hesitating. She quietly apologizes for always being such a handful. Aris shrugs and tells her that her being a handful is actually part of her charm before walking off. Rika and Shinobu watch him leave while Iko lingers for a moment staring at Nene. Later, they meet by the bike racks. Aris suddenly kneels and pretends to confess that he has been secretly seeing Iko. Nene grits her teeth, but Aris misreads her strained face and casually points toward the restroom. Furious, Nene complains that she can't properly feel the betrayal because she cannot imagine Aris and Iko actually being in love. Unexpectedly, Iko steps up and slips into character, and the two exchange overly sweet and cheesy lines that make Nene cringe and call the whole thing fake. Aris insists that she just needs to get used to the idea. Eventually, they decide to call it a day since Aris and Iko still need to return to the club room. As Nene watches them walk away together, she still isn't convinced they could ever act like a real couple, let alone become one. But then she suddenly remembers that Iko had tried to kiss Aris. As she walks off, she wonders what it would actually feel like to have someone she loves stolen from her. Her steps slow when she spots Aris and Iko cuddling on a bench. Startled, she tries to hear their conversation. Hiko sounds impatient, saying she wants to come clean and reveal that they're dating. Aris tells her to be patient, explaining that it would be troublesome if rumors spread. Still, he adds that at the very least they can enjoy this acting scenario so they can be openly affectionate. Nene freezes in shock because this means Aris and Iko have been dating for real the entire time. Aris notices Nene's reaction immediately, but Iko quickly scolds him not to look her way too much or he'll give everything away. The truth is that the entire broadcast club is in on this prank. It was Shinobu who proposed the idea, confident that they could make Nene jealous. At first, Aris was against it. He genuinely believed Nene didn't have any positive feelings toward him, and he didn't want their current relationship to turn sour. But Rika reassured him that Nene liked him more than he realized. To decide who would play the fake girlfriend, the three girls settled it with a game of rock, paper, scissors. Now, judging by Nene's reaction, the plan has worked. The problem is that Aris has no idea how to proceed from here. Shinobu and Rika are also surprised. They expected shock, but not to the point that Nene would freeze. Even Aris and Iko are unable to proceed. They had assumed Nene would immediately try to come between them. Instead, everyone is simply waiting for someone to move. Aris recovers first and tries to check on Iko. She seems to be regaining her composure as well, and her mind drifts back to a recent conversation she had with Nene where Nene had hinted at feelings for Aris. Looking over at Nene, who is still staring at them, Iko makes a sudden decision. She turns to Aris and says she wants to kiss him, and openly confesses that she likes him. Shinobu and Rika are stunned by the sudden shift. Iko closes her eyes, preparing to lean in. Aris, however, assumes this is still part of the plan. In his head, he even praises Iko for escalating things so Nene will finally jump in. He isn't entirely convinced Nene will be jealous. She might just get angry at him for dating one of her friends. As Iko leans closer, the distance between them keeps shrinking, making Aris begin to panic. Just before their lips meet, Nene suddenly shoves them apart, loudly scolding them for trying to kiss at school. She then blurts out that they aren't even supposed to kiss outside of school. Her frantic reaction makes Shinobu and Rika step in to calm her down. After explaining the prank, Aris asks Nene if she thinks the experience helped her understand the emotions she struggled with. Nene only responds with an angry huff before storming off. Rika and Shinobu decide to follow her to help her cool down, leaving Iko alone with Aris. Aris praises Iko for the brilliant execution and she accepts the compliment. While Aris buys drinks, Iko suddenly asks him if he has ever kissed Nene before, but he denies it. When he hands her a can of cola as thanks, she asks for his black coffee instead after he has already taken a sip. For now, she decides she'll settle for an indirect kiss, but the moment she tastes the bitter coffee, she instantly regrets it. The next day, the theater club rehearses the scene again. Sarah is as dramatic as ever, while Nene stares at her with an almost lifeless expression. When it's finally her turn to deliver her line, Nene recalls everything she felt watching Aris and Iko. Instead of sticking to the script, she goes offline and tells Sarah to get lost. The intensity in her voice is almost frightening. A student calls for a pause, gently reminding her that she said the wrong line, but Sarah unexpectedly applauds her instead, saying that the delivery fit the emotional tone far better than the original. Sarah excitedly asks how Nene managed to act with such convincing emotion, and Nene cautiously admits that she experienced something close to being cheated on. Later, in the broadcast room, Nene demands that Aris praise her properly, especially since he went out of his way to watch her rehearsal. He does so easily and even comments that she seems much closer to the theater club now. Nene admits she learned to be more honest about her feelings and that Aris helped her realize that. She says she discovered something new about emotions and plans to use it in her acting, but lightly scolds him for the fake kiss with Iko. Aris argues that they hadn't planned for it to escalate. They'd expected her to intervene much earlier. Nene suddenly grows suspicious and asks whether they would have actually kissed. Aris brushes it off casually, but Nene quietly mutters that if it had been her in Iko's position, she might have actually kissed him. Aris doesn't catch what she says. Before anyone can ask her to repeat it, she leaves the broadcast room. Thinking he upset her again, Aris quickly runs after her. But Nene is hiding just around the corner of the hallway since he fell for her prank. In her dream, Iko's VTuber persona, Econ, has reached 3 million subscribers, so she holds a grand concert where she debuts a brand new model. Thousands of fans cheer as she addresses them. She thanks one special person for helping her reach this point. At school, Iko ends her stream and reflects on her steady growth. However, she overhears a group of boys discussing an upcoming VTuber concert and how Ao, one of the performers, already has over 3 million subscribers. Hearing that number makes her realize that it might take her a century to reach that milestone. She begins to wonder if she's falling behind compared to the rest of the broadcast club. She knows her clubmates will undoubtedly achieve their dreams. What she isn't sure of is whether she can achieve hers. Just then, she hears Aris' voice and notices him standing at the bottom of the stairs with Nene, both looking at her curiously. Without warning, she rushes down and tackles him, blames him for no clear reason, then immediately runs away. Iko heads straight to the club room and thinks that if she wants to catch up, she needs to become more popular. She decides to study Ao as a reference. Watching Ao's concert leaves her stunned. The production quality is on another level, and the model is even capable of dancing with elaborate visual effects. It feels impossibly far ahead of where she is now, so she switches to Ao's regular streams and finds even more things her model is not yet capable of. Hiko once believed she was already doing a wide range of content, but comparing herself now makes her feel painfully inferior. Later that afternoon, Oris notices an announcement on Iko's channel. She scheduled a cooking stream, which is new. When the stream begins, Iko greets her chat brightly and announces she will be baking a 4-tier cake, proudly claiming it's something no VTuber has ever attempted live. She starts baking but quickly struggles to manage everything. Her model continues talking about her struggles as her real self bakes off-screen. Chat grows confused because only the avatar is visible, and there's no camera showing what she's actually doing. After reading the comments, Iko realizes her mistake. Flustered, she abruptly ends the stream. Aris watches the stream close with frustration, noticing that chat seemed equally disappointed. In the home economics room, Iko sits in front of the messy aftermath of her failed baking attempt, feeling defeated. Over the next few days, she attempts to replicate Awu's stream styles, but her model's technical limitations hinder her progress. On one occasion, she even announces she will keep singing until she reaches 3 million subscribers. At school, Aris grabs her wrist to stop her from walking away, but she struggles against him, already expecting a lecture. To avoid the confrontation, she suddenly blurts out that she has to beat Awu, then unexpectedly blows into his ear, giving her the chance to run off. Once she's far enough away, Iko convinces herself that Aris probably doesn't believe she can surpass Awu. This is something she has to handle on her own. She receives a notification that Awu has started a new stream, teasing the reveal of a more daring outfit. In the following days, the broadcast club notices that Iko has scheduled an outfit reveal stream. They assume she's been busy drawing, which explains why she hasn't been attending club duties lately. When the stream begins, all the girls tune in. They are stunned to see Ikon appear in a swimsuit. Meanwhile, Iko watches her viewer count spike almost instantly. She wonders if the sudden increase is simply because her new outfit is more revealing. One commenter suddenly asks her to jump. Though Iko is embarrassed, she decides to go through with it. In the broadcast room, the girls stare at their screens as Ikon begins bouncing. Meanwhile, back with Iko, Aris abruptly lifts her tablet out of reach. Iko jumps as she tries to grab it back so she can continue the stream. She insists she needs to do this if she wants to surpass Awu. Aris admits that she does need to surpass her, but not like this. His words catch her off guard and she stumbles backward. He tells her that she already has what it takes to become a top VTuber and that she isn't inferior to Awu at all. As he pulls her slightly closer, he reassures her that she has her own strengths. Iko smiles softly and finally asks for his help. Aris grins in triumph, pleased that she finally said it out loud. Later, they sit in an empty classroom to plan their next move. Iko hesitates and asks Aris what she possibly has that's better than Awu. Without hesitation, Aris says he loves her voice. She immediately blushes, but he continues seriously, explaining that a VTuber's voice is usually their strongest asset. Many viewers leave streams running in the background, which turns the experience into something almost audio only. He tells her that her voice is angelic and soothing, something you could easily listen to all day. Iko feels warmth rise to her face as he keeps praising her, until she finally demands that he slow down because it's getting embarrassing. Aris then shifts the topic and explains that even a good voice won't matter without proper exposure. To grow, she needs to collaborate with bigger VTubers. He shows her a banner for a VTuber group hosting a takoyaki party event. He tells her to collaborate, and once people hear her voice, they'll become curious about her. Iko doubts anyone would want to collaborate with her, but Aris shows her a VTuber named Compiler, who is hosting an upcoming horror game speedrun event. In her post, Compiler mentioned looking for participants. Iko agrees to give it a try. Aris suggests they practice the game first and schedule a stream that will hopefully catch Compiler's attention. He adds that despite how her recent experiments turned out, he's proud of her for trying new types of content instead of sticking only to chatting streams. Iko looks out the classroom window thoughtfully and mentions that she had a dream where her goal finally came true. She teasingly refuses to tell him, but in her heart, she vows to show him that dream herself someday. A week later, Iko starts her stream and tells her viewers she's trying out the trend of speedrunning a popular horror game. She and Aris are broadcasting from an empty classroom, where she has set up a computer to play. As she chats confidently with her audience, Aris watches with quiet assurance. He knows she's actually a skilled gamer, especially when it comes to FPS titles. The game begins and Iko starts professionally, gathering items and preparing herself so she can progress while well-equipped. Aris notices she moves around a lot physically while playing, but she's making good time. Then the first zombie appears. Instead of shooting it, Iko panics and throws her controller away with a scream. Aris manages to catch it midair. He quickly pulls Iko up from where she crouched on the floor and scolds her for letting go of the controller in the middle of the game. Iko weakly admits that she's actually terrible with horror games. A horde of zombies suddenly floods the screen. Iko shrieks at full volume and tosses the controller again. Back in the broadcast room, the girls watch the chaos unfold on stream without surprise. They're fully aware of Iko's extreme fear of horror titles. After the stream, Iko slumps over the table while Aris tries to cheer her up, pointing out that she gained a lot of new followers. But to Iko, it feels meaningless. She can't even play the game properly, so there's no way she'll be invited to collaborate. Aris decides to take the blame, saying he should have checked with her first before setting up the horror speedrun, but it does little to cheer her up. Then Aris suddenly gets a notification and remarks that the world of VTubers really is interesting. He asks her why she thinks Kashin is sometimes more popular than professional baseball. Iko gives an outrageous guess, and Aris corrects her, explaining that amateurs filled with youthful spirit, visible mistakes, and raw drama often capture people's hearts because of how genuine they are. He says it is the same with VTubers. It's her clumsy, flawed, but honest efforts that will reach people and make them loyal fans. He then mentions that a compilation of clips from her horror stream is currently trending. When Iko looks at it, the thumbnail and caption feel embarrassing and borderline insulting, and she becomes convinced Compiler would never want to collaborate with her. Her phone suddenly chimes. Aris assumes it is Compiler's invitation, but Iko refuses to get her hopes up. When she finally checks, she freezes because it's actually Avo. Aris tells her to calm down, even though he is barely keeping his own nerves in check. He never expected Avo to notice Iko so soon. Iko hesitates, unsure whether she should accept. Aris tells her not to treat it like a casual invite and to actually read the details. The message reveals that 50 VTubers have been invited to compete in a tournament, and only the winner will get to play with Avo on stream. Iko reads more closely and sees that the game is a popular racing title she's actually good at. They decide to give it their best shot so she can share a stream with Avo. A few days later, Ao's stream begins. She goes over the rules of the tournament and shows images of the invited VTubers. When the event starts, Ao introduces the first group as a set of VTubers known for controversy. Unfortunately, Iko is grouped with them and is singled out for allegedly peeing on stream. Iko flushes and tries to deny it, while Aris quickly realizes she was likely invited as a joke. The other VTubers immediately start teasing her, asking her to make a kissing face. Since her model has limited expressions, it pulls up the same awkward face from her previous stream, which only makes them bully her. Aris watches in frustration, hoping she can still win, but Iko finishes dead last in her group and is eliminated from the tournament. She turns to him and apologizes for losing. Aris feels a pang of guilt, blaming himself for not being more helpful, and steps forward to apologize. But Iko surprises him by smiling. She says everyone was amazing and that she was happy just to be part of such a big event, even if she lost. The teasing was frustrating at first, but she is grateful they got to share a stage with people who work hard for their views. She adds that as long as Aris continues to support her, she believes she can make even more people happy. Aris admits he hadn't thought of it that way, and he feels relieved knowing she had fun. Then his expression hardens. He says he cannot just let those VTubers insult his Iko so casually, and Iko immediately notices the possessiveness in his tone. He also grumbles about how rude Ao was for not interacting with her. Before Iko can fully process the way he refers to her, she receives a call from Ao. Aris moves as if ready to confront her, but Iko answers first. Ao apologizes for placing her in that particular group, admitting she thought it would be funny and didn't expect the teasing to go too far. She promises to reach out again for a proper collaboration and casually mentions that she would like to speak with Aris someday. After the call ends, both of them wonder how Ao even knows about Aris' involvement. Iko suddenly presses her tablet to Aris' cheek as a method of giving him a kiss. Aris looks at the screen in confusion, noticing that her model appears oddly frightened. Iko quickly explains that this is the expression her model uses when she needs to go to the bathroom. She adds that it was triggered because of what he said earlier. Aris immediately realizes his possessive wording and apologizes. Iko steps to leave the room. In her heart, she makes a quiet promise that one day there will no longer be a screen separating them. One day, the girls are watching the collaboration event that Ao invited Iko to join. They're disappointed that Iko lost, but they're still impressed that such a big name invited her to appear on stream. Rika mentions that it was actually Aris who helped Iko get the slot. Both she and Nene start talking about how Aris seems to enjoy helping them with their careers. By lunchtime, the entire school is buzzing. Word has spread that the broadcast club will be debuting a new segment during their program. As Shinobu walks through the hallway, several students wish her good luck. Nene also receives praise from her friends, while Rika is even given cookies by a pair of girls as a snack. Meanwhile, Iko herself is still half asleep, so she needs a classmate to wake her up. When the girls approach the broadcast club room, they once again draw the attention of students nearby, just like always. Once everyone is inside and ready, Shinobu begins the lunchtime broadcast. She starts by announcing that they are using new equipment today. After that, she introduces their newest segment, Love Advice from Four Friends. Students across the school listen closely, pleased that the audio is finally clear enough to hear the girls' voices properly. Aris listens to the broadcast and smiles, proud of how popular the broadcast club has become. The first question they read is from a girl who suspects her boyfriend might be cheating. Three of the girls immediately offer blunt suggestions on how she could get back at him, which earns them a disapproving look from Shinobu. After thinking for a moment, Shinobu calmly advises the girl to first check her boyfriend's phone. If she confirms that he really is cheating, then she should simply dump him. Listening to the response, Aris concludes that Shinobu might actually be the most spiteful one among them. His friends ask why he isn't in the broadcast club room with the others. He adds that he can't always be there to guide them through everything. Back in the broadcast club room, the girls move on to the next question. This one comes from someone named Itachi, who wants to know if he has a chance with his crush. He noticed that whenever she looks at her, she quickly averts her eyes, and he wonders if that might be a sign that she secretly likes him too. The girls seem stumped by the question, so Rika turns to Shinobu for her thoughts. Shinobu's mind drifts to her own experience with Aris in class, remembering how he would sometimes avert his eyes when she looked at him. She blushes and tells Itachi that he has a shot. The others are shocked by her answer but let it slide. The following day, another message from Itachi arrives. The message reveals that Itachi now has a dinner date planned and asks for advice on what they should eat. The girls are surprised at how quickly things have progressed, and Rika curiously asks what Iko herself would want to eat on a first date. Iko remembers the first time she had okonomiyaki with Aris. She had been completely inexperienced at cooking it. When he noticed she was struggling, he gently took her hands and guided her through the motion. Her heart flutters at the memory. Iko answers that okonomiyaki would be his choice. The others are surprised by the choice at first, but quickly agree that it's actually a great idea. Meanwhile, at the cafeteria, the boys sitting with Aris are amused to learn something new about Iko. A day later, another message from Itachi arrives. He reports that he wants to confess, but he's too nervous to say the words directly, so he asks if there's another way he could express his feelings. By now, much of the school has become invested in following Itachi's story. Nene and Rika immediately claim there is only one solution, but they can't agree on what it should be. Rika argues that a hug would be the better choice. Nene counters that a simple kiss on the cheek would be perfectly acceptable and accuses Rika of giving suggestive hugs. Before long, the two are arguing loudly. Seeing the situation escalate, Iko suggests that Shinobu turn off the microphone. Shinobu taps the button twice to turn it off. Then she calmly tells Nene and Rika that there's no point arguing about it when none of them even have experience with that sort of thing. Both girls immediately protest and insist that they do have experience. Shinobu and Iko stare at them in shock, and Shinobu slides back in her chair, defeated. Rika and Nene stubbornly insist that their chosen form of affection is what a boy would actually prefer. At that moment, the door suddenly slides open, revealing Aris. Rika recovers first and quickly steps in front of Nene. She asks Aris whether a hug would make him happier and encourages him to answer honestly, since the microphone is supposedly turned off. Aris looks at them and informs them that the microphone is actually still on. The entire school is buzzing after hearing Rika and Nene seemingly admit that they have relationship experience. Shinobu quickly realizes she had pressed the wrong switch. Nene is convinced that her public image is now completely ruined. She immediately suggests ending the broadcast and turns the mic off. Just then, Lemon casually walks in and takes a seat. She comments on how disastrous the broadcast is. Then she starts venting about how Samejima has been acting strangely lately. She explains that he has been trying to make eye contact with her and even offered to treat her to okonomiyaki. As she continues talking, the girls feel the story sounds oddly familiar. Lemon complains that just moments ago, Samejima tried to hug and kiss her at the same time. At that moment, Iko suddenly realizes Itachi is Samejima. Lemon admits she was also surprised to hear that Nene and Rika had experience with love. Nene grows even more embarrassed, while Rika simply stays quiet. Eventually, Iko makes a quick announcement, explaining that the earlier discussion had been entirely fictional. With the situation mostly settled, Lemon stands up to leave but reminds the girls that they should probably keep relationship talk to a minimum. Once she is gone, Aris takes the opportunity to ask Iko about her next stream. The girls quickly notice that Aris has been calling her by her first name. Nene immediately calls him out, saying it's rude of him to suddenly start using Iko's first name. Aris admits he had been doing it unconsciously and apologizes to Iko. However, Iko blushes and quietly says that she doesn't mind him using her name. Relieved, Aris decides that he'll keep using her name since it's easier to say. Hearing that, Nene blushes as well and stubbornly declares that he can use her first name too. When Aris hesitates, she quickly adds that it's only because her name has fewer syllables and would be more efficient to say. Aris tries saying her name, causing Nene to suddenly go completely quiet. Confused by her reaction, Aris turns toward Rika for help. But before he can say anything, Rika has already stepped in front of him and asks him to try calling her by her first name as well. When he does, she immediately turns away and giggles, saying it tickles her ears. Aris stands there, completely confused by the situation. After everything that just happened, he asks if he should call Shinobu by her given name. Shinobu refuses, saying it would be embarrassing for her. Aris notices her cheeks are slightly red and suggests postponing their study session. Shinobu quickly insists that she is fine and that they can still meet at their usual diner. After school, Aris tutors Shinobu since she still struggles with some grammar. As they go through her notes, he points out a few mistakes while casually enjoying a plate of fries. Shinobu notices the fries look especially fresh, so Aris offers to share half of them with her. She politely declines, saying she's on a diet, but asks if she can try just one. When she reaches for a fry, Aris stops her and offers to feed her instead. She quickly refuses again, claiming she doesn't really like fries. Aris accepts the explanation and apologizes, saying he only assumed she liked them because Rika does. Hearing that makes Shinobu feel strangely jealous. Before she can stop herself, she grabs his hand and eats the fry directly. Then she demands that he feed her another one. Aris looks puzzled by the sudden change. Suspecting something, he begins telling a casual story while deliberately mentioning the other girls by their first names. Each time he does, Shinobu chokes slightly on the fries. That more or less confirms his suspicion. He asks her directly if she's bothered by him calling the others so familiarly. He even offers to start calling her by her first name as well. Shinobu quickly denies that it bothers her and says there's no need for him to do that. She begins packing up her notes instead, suggesting they should start heading home. When they step outside, they notice the rain still hasn't let up. Aris' umbrella had been damaged earlier, leaving him without one. Shinobu offers to share her umbrella with him as a way of making up for the situation. The walk home is quiet and peaceful. Aris comments that her grades have been steadily improving lately. Shinobu playfully credits him for that and even calls him teacher. Aris laughs and remarks that if she keeps improving at this pace, she might not need his tutoring anymore. After a short pause, Shinobu begins to open up about something she's been thinking about. She admits that she doesn't really want to be called Shinobu yet. She feels a little guilty because her dream seems so different compared to the other girls. She brings up Iko and how much progress she's been making. Aris recalls how difficult it was at first to get Iko to show emotion during her streams, even after he helped set up face tracking for her model. But eventually, Iko learned to smile naturally and has been improving ever since. He also mentions that although the collaboration stream didn't go perfectly, it was still an important step that will help her grow. Next, he talks about Nene and how impressed he is that she's been attending auditions on her own. He remembers watching her practice early on and how terrible she had been at first, to the point that he had to step in and help. He also recalls when she temporarily joined the drama club and struggled badly in the beginning. But once Nene began taking it seriously, she improved and even performed well during rehearsals. Shinobu then mentions that Rika has been improving. Aris agrees that Rika has been doing great, though he points out that it was everyone's combined efforts that helped her regain confidence. Thanks to their support, she has started singing her original songs again. He remembers the private concert they organized, which helped her overcome her fears. A comfortable silence settles between them as Shinobu lets her thoughts wander. All of her friends are gradually getting closer to their dreams. And in the process, they've also been growing closer to Aris. She can't help but feel a little left behind. Compared to the others, she feels like she's the furthest away from reaching her own dream, which also means that her distance from Aris feels larger than everyone else's. Aris eventually notices that she has fallen a few steps behind and calls out to her. She looks up just as he moves back to her side, so the umbrella covers them both again. Shinobu quietly admits to herself that she enjoys studying with him. Part of her even wishes that her grades wouldn't improve too quickly, just so they could keep meeting like this. She knows it's a silly wish, but it's her way of staying close to him. For now, being called by her last name is enough as long as he continues to walk beside her. But she promises herself that one day she will catch up to the others. She calls out to Aris again, and as he looks at her, she gathers her courage. Imagining the day she can stand proudly beside the rest of her clubmates, she tells him that when she finally takes bigger strides toward her dream, she would like him to call her Shinobu. One day, the broadcast club goes out to shop for potted plants to brighten up their club room. The idea came from Nene, but she seems the least interested. As they browse, Shinobu spots an unusual-looking plant and asks Aris about it. Instead of simply naming it, he immediately goes into a detailed explanation. Nearby, Iko is focused on finding a cactus. Rika, meanwhile, finds a small potted plant with distinct, peculiar leaves and calls Aris over. He identifies it as a pachira and once again begins explaining it in detail. They end up choosing that plant. The pachira has 5 leaves per stem, which the girls feel perfectly represents their club of 5 members. On the way back, Rika lags behind slightly, her thoughts drifting back to the main concert they held together. That day made her realize how much she truly loves singing her original songs. More than anything, she wants to perform them in a street live someday. But as she walks behind the group, she worries because she still hasn't been able to write a new song. Up ahead, Aris is also thinking about Rika. He had assumed she would have written something new by now. He begins wondering what he can do to help her get past her block. At that moment, faint music drifts through the air and Rika feels the urge to check it out. Without warning, she tosses the plant to Iko and runs toward the source of the sound. Rika eventually arrives near an alley and carefully peeks inside. There she finds Aiko. Relieved to see that Aiko is still performing street lives, Rika decides to stay and listen, keeping herself hidden from view. Aiko announces that the next song will be her last for the day, though much of the small crowd has already started to disperse. One man even voices his annoyance. Aiko snaps back, declaring that she is singing for herself. The man fires back, insulting her music and telling her to quit altogether. Their argument grows heated until he finally storms off. Left alone, Aiko addresses the empty space and says that her final song is one she wrote with a friend. She recalls how excited they both were back in middle school, even receiving a response from a record label. Hearing this, Rika remembers that moment clearly. The scout had only shown interest in her voice back then. Aiko continues, saying she was still happy that their music had been acknowledged, even if they couldn't sign with the label together. So she entrusted their shared dream to her friend. Her tone sharpens as she adds that her friend eventually ran away after facing a setback. That's why she continues to sing their song, because she knows her friend has real talent, and if nothing else, she hopes that song can at least make her number one in someone's heart. She asks whoever might still be listening to remember it. When she says the title, Rika immediately recognizes it. As Aiko begins to play, the melody and lyrics flood back to Rika. While Aiko sings, Rika quietly reflects on where her own path in music is heading. The next day, in the broadcast room, Aris attempts hypnosis to convince Iko that a slice of lemon tastes sweet. It fails immediately, and Iko suffers the full force of the soreness. With that experiment proving useless, Aris returns to thinking about how to help Rika move forward. Suddenly, they hear music coming from outside. The group rushes to the window and sees Rika standing in the courtyard speaking to a small crowd. Excitement builds as she begins strumming her guitar. But as she starts singing, Aris quickly realizes the song is an original. At first, the crowd looks confused, clearly unfamiliar with the song. Some of them even seem slightly disappointed. But gradually, a few people admit that they actually like it, maybe even more than what they expected. The mixed reactions don't shake Rika at all. She continues singing, pouring her heart into the performance. With each line, her love for her original music becomes more evident. From the window, Aris watches in amazement. The song is genuinely good, far better than he expected. When the song ends, he instinctively calls out to her, asking when she wrote it, making sure to praise it as well. Rika looks up at him, slightly annoyed. It feels like he's only paying attention to her now. Even so, Rika answers his question, though her gaze is on the crowd as she says she wrote the song for her best friend. She adds that she also wrote it for someone extra, then teasingly glances up toward Aris. Aris immediately understands that she is referring to him. During another after-school meeting, Aris confidently announces that he has already secured a venue for Rika's street performance. All that's left now is for her to perform. Before he can continue, Nene quickly stuffs a piece of bread into his mouth to quiet him down, reminding him that Rika is still working on her songs and can't concentrate with him being so loud. Rika mentions that she only has one song left to complete, since she wants 5 original songs on her album. Aris praises her, impressed that she's been able to write consistently this time. However, Rika doesn't seem particularly happy with the compliment, which leaves him slightly annoyed. She then changes the topic and shows everyone a draft of her album cover on her phone. Aris misinterprets the design and assumes it means she dislikes rabbits, but Rika corrects him, explaining that it symbolizes defiance. The group promises to support her performance, but they are all surprised when Rika suddenly asks them not to attend. She explains that while having them there would calm her nerves, she doesn't want to keep relying on them forever. Shinobu accepts her reasoning without protest, and the others agree to attend her next show instead. Curious, Nene asks how Rika was suddenly able to start writing again. Rika explains that she realized her problem was trying too hard to appeal to a crowd. Recently, she started focusing on writing songs for specific people instead, and once she did that, the melody and lyrics began to flow naturally. However, when it comes to the final song, she's completely stuck. She admits that maybe what she really needs is to talk to that person directly so she can write. Hearing this, Aris decides to take responsibility as her producer. He calls out to her and asks if there's anything she needs. Whatever she wants, he'll make it happen. Rika smiles slightly and decides to make a request. Later that evening, they meet by the ocean. Aris is puzzled by her choice, but Rika explains that writing songs while looking out at the sea in the evening helps her. He doesn't argue and simply sits beside her. For a while, they sit in silence. Then Aris mentions how composers like Beethoven also dedicated their music to someone important to them. After praising her again, he asks who she is writing her songs for. Rika refuses to give a direct answer but hints that it's someone she distanced herself from because things became awkward. She says she's trying to gather the courage to properly express how she feels. Aris assumes she must be referring to Aiko, given their past fallout, and asks what exactly she wants to tell that person. Rika grows flustered but eventually admits that she wants to say, "I love you." Aris finds it a bit unusual to express such strong feelings for a friend but decides not to dwell on it. Instead, he asks to see the lyrics of her unfinished song. Reluctantly, Rika hands them over. After reading through them, Aris points out that the lyrics feel unclear. It's difficult to tell that they are meant to convey love because they're too vague. To help her, he asks her directly what she loves about that person. Nervously, she says that the person always listened to her late into the evening and encouraged her to pursue her dreams. Aris urges her to continue. She adds that she admires how kind that person is and how much she enjoys their voice. More than anything, that person is still waiting for her. Aris nods, praising the person she's describing, and tells her she should incorporate those feelings into her lyrics. But Rika hesitates. She says it would feel like cheating to rely on that before telling the person directly. There's also a part of her that fears disappointing them if she doesn't express it properly. Aris grows frustrated with her response. He tells her she shouldn't hold back something she's clearly capable of doing. Not everyone can express their feelings through music the way she can. Rika is taken aback by how passionately he says it. After a moment, she asks him what he would feel if someone confessed to him through a song. Aris calms down and answers honestly that it would make him happy. That answer surprises her, but at the same time, it gives her a sense of confidence. She tells him that she's decided to leave the final song out of the album for now. Aris is confused by the decision, but Rika explains that the last song is too important. She reveals that she plans to release it only when she feels she has truly become an artist. And if her street performance turns out to be a success, she promises that she'll sing that song directly to the person it was meant for. On the day of the performance, Aris brings her to a venue in a popular park. He mentions that even big names like Celestial have performed there before, which means the people who frequent the area tend to have high standards for street performers. As they walk toward the spot, Rika suddenly becomes aware of the crowd around them. A sharp pain tightens in her chest. She has faced disappointment before, but back then she didn't fully understand it. Now she does, and that makes it even more frightening. She'd almost asked Aris to call everything off. But before she can, he steps directly in front of her, close enough that she can only see his eyes. He tells her that if she gets too nervous, she could just look into his eyes. Then he casually reveals that he even brought light sticks so she can easily spot him in the crowd. His dejected reaction makes her laugh a little, and she thanks him for helping ease her nerves. With that, she decides to go through with it. When she begins performing, a few people glance her way, but most continue walking. Aris quickly notices how tense she is. Her performance isn't as strong as usual, and the lack of audience engagement is clearly affecting her. He watches closely, hoping she can pull herself together. But just as he feared, her confidence begins to crumble. In her mind, she can already imagine Aris's disappointment. It's enough to make her stop mid-song. She's on the verge of giving up entirely when Aris suddenly calls out to her and gestures toward the side. When she looks, she spots the other members of the broadcast club trying to blend into the surroundings. Even though they're hiding, their presence is obvious enough. Seeing them there reminds her that she isn't alone and that she has always had their support. Taking a breath, she lets go of her hesitation. Instead of trying to win over the crowd, she decides to sing for herself. She moves on to her next song, and this time her voice carries a familiar strength. As she strums her guitar, she remembers that this is the song she wrote for the club members. The only people she needs to think about right now are them. Gradually, people begin to stop and listen. Aris watches as the small crowd starts to grow, realizing that his decision to ask the others to come was the right one. He had secretly gathered the 3 girls and told them to attend even if Rika had asked them not to. He had instructed them to stay nearby so she would still feel their presence. Looking at the performance, he feels satisfied as more and more people gather around. Then, among the crowd, a young girl wearing a band cap who looks strikingly similar to Rika steps closer and watches intently. Rika continues singing with growing confidence, and Aris feels a sense of pride watching her. Then he spots Hizumi, a member of Celestial, heading off somewhere. As the song draws to a close, Aris feels confident that Rika will be able to sell her album. His attention drifts to Hizumi. Rika finishes the song and becomes aware of the crowd gathered in front of her. A little girl steps forward first and excitedly asks to buy a CD. Soon, more people follow, and Rika is visibly surprised that so many are showing interest in her music. She realizes that all she really needed to do was focus on her music, and the audience would come naturally. But before she can begin her next song, the sound of drums suddenly echoes through the park. At the far end of the area, Hizumi and the rest of Celestial announce that they will be holding a surprise mini-anniversary concert there. The crowd immediately recognizes them, and people begin leaving Rika's spot and heading towards Celestial instead. At first, Izumi doesn't seem particularly enthusiastic about performing, which visibly annoys her bandmates. But the moment she starts playing her bass, her entire presence changes. Her energy sharpens, and the atmosphere around the three-member band becomes intense. Even Arvis is caught off guard by how powerful their performance is. Then Izumi begins to sing, and Aris finds himself genuinely impressed by the strength and control behind her vocals. The crowd responds immediately, thrilled to witness a free performance from a well-known band. Meanwhile, Arvis and Rika stand frozen, quietly absorbing just how strong Celestial is. After a moment, Rika continues her concert. She begins singing her third song, even though almost no one remains to listen. Artis feels a pang of guilt watching her perform to an empty space. As she sings, she remembers the day Aiko first invited her to form a band together. Aiko had openly admitted that she liked Rika's voice. She had said Rika's singing could bring in big money someday. She also confessed that if they were in a band together, she would be able to hear that voice as often as she wanted. At the time, Rika went along with Aiko's enthusiasm. Before long, the two of them created their first original song and sent it to a record label. Eventually, they received an email inviting them to meet with an agent to discuss a possible contract. But when they arrived at the meeting, the agent was only interested in signing Rika. Rika had refused, but Aiko encouraged her to accept the opportunity. Looking back now, Rika realizes that Aiko might have wanted to say much more that day, but chose to support her from the sidelines. When Rika quit after suffering that setback, she continued performing cover songs instead. During that time, she sometimes noticed Aiko watching her from the crowd. She noticed that Aiko always looked at her with resentment. Now, standing on stage again, that same sting of disappointment returns in full force. For a moment, she thinks she might finally break down. But just as her vision starts to blur, a bright light suddenly catches her attention. She sees Artis standing and waving a pair of light sticks. He calls out to her, telling her to focus only on his eyes. He compliments his idea for bringing the light sticks, since they still manage to catch her attention even through her tears. The ridiculousness of the situation pulls her back to herself. But before she can say anything else, something behind him stuns her. Artis misreads her reaction and assumes she is about to stop performing. He begins scolding her, but then notices Aiko behind him. Aiko simply tells them that she received a flyer from Aris and came to the park to listen to Rika. Relief washes over Aris as he realizes she actually came. Rika takes the opportunity to apologize, but Aiko tells Rika to keep singing. She explains that she came all the way there specifically to hear Rika perform and that singing is the best way for Rika to communicate. Without another word, she announces she will sing her final song, which she dedicates to her best friend. As the melody rises into the air, memories begin to surface one after another. She remembers the early days of their friendship when everything felt simple and full of possibility. She remembers how the two of them decided to start a band together, sharing the same dream and promising to chase it side by side. When the song finally comes to an end, Rika looks directly at Aiko and asks how the performance was. Aiko stares back at her with a completely unimpressed expression. Then, in a flat voice, she asks where the encore is. Rika awkwardly explains that she only prepared 4 songs for the concert. Without warning, Aiko steps forward and grabs the microphone from the stand. Raising her voice so everyone in the park can hear, she loudly announces that the next performance will be a special one. Izumi begins to wonder if Rika is somehow challenging her. Without hesitation, Aiko confidently confirms it. This sends Izumi into panic since it was unexpected. Realizing that Aiko is only escalating the situation, Rika quickly glances toward Aris, hoping he will step in and calm things down. Instead, he also makes fun of Celestial. Aiko loudly announces that the next performance will be a special arrangement of the song. Rika lets out a small sigh. By now, she is already familiar with Aiko's stubborn persistence. She apologizes again for the trouble, but Aiko also offers a brief apology in return. Rika hesitates for a moment, then asks Aiko if she thinks her singing has improved. Aiko answers that it is difficult to judge based on just one song. But this time, she promises that she will listen carefully, standing right beside Rika, implying she will sing with her. The familiar chords ring out, and the members of the broadcast club move a little closer to get a better view. Then Aiko's voice rises first, carrying the opening lines alone. A few seconds later, Rika joins in. As they sing, memories begin to surface in both of their minds. They remember the long afternoons and quiet evenings they spent together by the ocean while composing this very song. Later that evening, after the concert ends, the broadcast club gathers for a celebratory dinner to mark Rika's first public live performance featuring her original songs. The girls excitedly insist that they just happened to be nearby and decided to stop by. Rika shares that she managed to sell at least 20 copies of her album, even though her original goal had been 50. The girls then ask why Aiko did not join them for the celebration. Rika explains that she did invite her, but Aiko became too shy at the thought of meeting a new group of people. What matters most to them is that the concert was a success, and that Rika and Aiko have finally reconciled. Just before boarding the train to head home, Rika suddenly realizes she left her wallet at the park. The girls offer to accompany her to retrieve it, but Rika gently refuses. Nene gives Aris a firm push toward Rika, insisting that he go with her. The rest of the girls wish both of them good luck in finding the missing wallet and remind them that they will see each other again at school after the weekend. Soon, the two of them find themselves riding the train back toward the park. The carriage is strangely quiet. Rika gestures toward the empty space beside her and invites Aris to sit next to her. But he refuses, claiming that sitting is bad for his health. Aris is worried about the possibility that Rika's wallet might no longer be at the park. To calm him down, Rika gently tells him that despite how nervous she had been, she truly had fun during the concert. Hearing that, Aris finally relaxes a little. He offers sincere praise this time. Rika admits that even though she did manage to sell all 50 CDs, she still feels satisfied with the outcome. She was able to write new music again, and she finds comfort in the realization that all she really needed was to focus on the people she wanted to write her songs for. She tells him that making music feels fun again, but then her voice softens and she begins to wonder if she might still be wrong about her method. Aris quickly reassures her that enjoying her music is important. Rika admits she had fun, but there was also pain. She confesses how deeply it hurt when the audience she had gathered suddenly left. Aris insists that she did nothing wrong, arguing that she had performed wonderfully, and that it was simply unfortunate timing that Celestial happened to hold a concert nearby. But Rika disagrees and mentions that if she truly wants to become a professional musician, then she knows they will always be competing for the same listeners. Her thoughts drift back to the day she disappointed her talent scout, the moment that setback first shook her confidence. What she doesn't realize is that, somewhere else in the city, that same scout is currently speaking with someone from her former label. The scout reports that the Celestial concert was a success, but he also adds that he recently saw Rika perform and was intrigued, since it seems like Rika has real talent. Although he didn't recognize her, he found her voice memorable. The man works for Peace Records, and he quietly considers the possibility of reaching out to her in the future. Meanwhile, Nene confidently remarks that Aris will definitely manage to find the missing wallet. Iko admits that she has been relying on Aris for many things lately. Instead of elaborating, she suddenly breaks into a run. Shinobu watches her leave and softly comments that she admires Iko's strength. After that, she and Nene also head in different directions, home far from their minds. Still on the train, Rika confesses that she is starting to question whether she truly has what it takes to succeed as a singer. The tears she's been holding back all day finally spill over. But what surprises her is that Aris is crying too. Through his tears, he blames himself for not anticipating Celestial's appearance, convinced that he failed her. He had wanted her first live performance to become a joyful and unforgettable milestone. Rika smiles through her own tears. She gently tells him not to blame himself because no one could have predicted what happened. Aris realizes that he has been crying. Embarrassed, he quickly wipes his eyes, muttering that it would disgrace his name if anyone were to see him in such a state. Rika can't help but smile at his self-consciousness. Wanting to comfort him, she does something unexpected. She steps forward and wraps her arms around him in a gentle hug, an action none of the other girls had ever been bold enough to take. When she feels his breathing steady, Rika thanks him sincerely for always going above and beyond to support her dream. She insists that she is the one who fell short and apologizes for not living up to expectations. Aris immediately protests, arguing that her music carries more heart and that he personally loves her songs even more than Celestial's. Rika lets out a small, tearful laugh and teasingly points out that his opinion is clearly biased, since he is her producer. She adds that having heart alone might not be enough when she is out there competing against other professional musicians. She calls his views idealistic, and Aris softly agrees with her. What Aris doesn't know is that after the concert, each member of the broadcast club quietly felt the same determination rise within them. One by one, they have all begun studying and practicing harder, each in their own way, to improve their craft and work toward their dreams. Across different parts of the city, though separated from one another, all the girls pause at the same moment, a smile on their faces when they see it. Each of them is suddenly struck by the quiet beauty of the setting sun. Thanks for watching. This marks the end of the season. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it.